Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Flutter Nordics meetups and a joint effort from all of the Nordic countries' Flutter communities. And I welcome you to this session. It's going to be an amazing session. We're going to have Christmas mood as well. I forgot actually my Christmas hat, but anyway, I will get it at some point. I want to welcome you to this session. And we will have great talks. Let me give you a quick update of what we want to do today. All right. First of all, we will have amazing speakers. So these folks, all of them are my friends, and they're amazing speakers and Flutter developers. So they're going to give you great talks about different topics for sure. And we will be informed about what they're going to talk very soon. And we will have more updates on that later. Stay with me. But what I'm going to talk today mostly is, in the beginning, is about some of our winners, potential winners, which we are going to find them at the end of this session after all of the talks. So what we're going to do today is we will have some dashes to give away, and we will have a ticket, a free ticket to Flutter Viking conference in person, and we will have a free ticket to Virtual Flutter Global Summit Senior Track. So these are great opportunities for you if you are from Nordic countries. There is only one criteria here, is that you need to be from Nordic countries so that we can ship this for you, the dashes. But for tickets, you can be anywhere. That's a raffle. So, and how can you win? It's very simple. We created the form here. You see on the screen, that's bit.ly/FLND 2021. Very simple. You will see a form that is asking your name, your email, and that's pretty much it, right? And what we need is this information for the raffle. At the end of the session, we will just remove everything. We're fully GDPR compliant, so don't worry about it. Feel free to fill these forms, and as soon as if we figure out you are the winner or not, we will contact you and we will remove this information. Don't worry about it. And how the raffle work, again, very simple. At the end of the session, first of all, fill this form. At the end of the session, we will randomly, from our list, pick the winners from some numbers. We know how many of you are going to register, and that's pretty much it. We're just going to randomly choose some numbers. One more thing is the code of conduct before we go to Wolt HQ, because this event is also sponsored by Wolt. But our code of conduct, as always, is very simple. You need to be very nice when you are in the chat. Please respect each other, and please do not repeat your questions several times. We are capturing everything. We have your questions. We will ask your questions from speakers if the time allows. And please do not try to spam our chat. Let's everyone to have same opportunity to ask a question. And please be respectful and be kind. Very simple code of conduct, and I think all of us are following that already. All right. And last thing that I want to say is, when I say Nordic countries, all the communities in the Nordic countries that are kind of behind this event right now, and we will have way more, information later, way more meetups, and even Flutter Vikings is part of this community right now. It's from Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Iceland. So we have so many great organizers from these countries, and we will come to you later with a lot of good contents and meetups and conferences and stuff for Flutter. All right. with that said, let me go to Wolt HQ. I have some great friends over there waiting for us. Hello, HQ.
Hello. Hopefully everyone can hear, and greetings from here. I wish we could have more people at the moment here, like eating pizza and having some beer or drinks. But sadly, the situation in the world, it is what it is right now. But safety is everything, and there will be another time when we can have the same thing and actually meet more people here. But hey, my name is Samuel, working here at Wolt as an engineering director for the consumer and new business products, and promise to say a couple of things. Don't worry, this doesn't take long, only a couple of minutes. Let's go to the next. If you can share actually my slides there. So thank you. So first things, important things first. We have created a special promo code for today. So you can see it on the screen. We will also put it to the chat, 10 euros. So if you are inside Wolt delivery area, you want to use this, don't put it to any forum. Let's reserve this only to the people who understand what Flutter is. So use it. We will keep it also like live at least the rest of the week if there are still some users left. But it's a bit limited, so it's not unlimited money forever. So please order some food or drinks or whatever while watching this show today. Yes, Flutter is a very important thing here at Wolt. So Wolt started actually only focusing on these restaurant food deliveries 6 years ago. But like last year, we really started to put more effort also on the like groceries and other these retail product categories. And Flutter has a very important part in our development. So we currently in Wolt, we have 370 people in our product development. So we develop Wolt's products in 5 different countries. Everything is remote first. So in Finland, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and Estonia. So we hire to all of these countries. So if you are a great Flutter engineer who's in the future looking for a new job, there is my personal email address and the Wolt address there. So send me a message. So let's see kind of could we have something at that point in our Flutter development team. Obviously, we have like tons of other things, also Python, Scala, where we are also recruiting to retail, TypeScript. But because this is a Flutter Flutter meetup, I'm not gonna go any deeper to those other things. But you can check our job site if you some reason wants to code something else than Flutter. And finally, what I want to say already on my behalf to everyone who has been organizing. I can see all the presenters here, very nervous, all the work what they have put to this show. So thank you everyone, also our organizing team here at Wolt and everyone there watching this now or later. Let the actual show begin. So I think Tom is the first one. Yes.
Okay. Hello. You still hear us, I think. Yes. I'm Chattai. I'm a developer at Wolt. I've been working here for almost a year. I'm in the Flutter team, and I really like the Flutter community. And I'm very happy to organize this in Wolt. And I would like to thank all the organizers with our team. Now, Tom is going to talk about Flutter and business. Tom is really funny guy. Yeah, you will see. You will see. And Tom, you will be actually acting in Finland, right? You have a. Is it too much information about you? Yeah, yeah. Do you want to talk about it? Yeah, just say you have. Is it on? Yes.
Thank you.
He's very talented. Yeah.
Yes. Do you want me to plug my play? I'm in the reading, the Finbrit players. Can't remember. Tickets on sale, selling out. Anyway.
Yeah.
probably not that relevant to most people watching this, but yes. Hello. Yes. The camera's up there, isn't it? Hello. I'm Tom. I'm from Codemate. We do Flutter apps and lots of other things. And yes, we have been using Flutter for quite a few years now, and have done lots with Flutter Web. We've been recently doing some partnerships with Google to actually work on things like the Google Dev Tools. So if I could have my slides up, please. There we go. Awesome. So yeah, today I'm going to kind of talk roughly about the kind of business side of Flutter, of convincing decision makers of how to convince the decision makers when to use Flutter and when it is the right business decision, and kind of helping them to know when to listen to us, I guess. So, you know, why is Flutter the right choice for business? Well, here's the thing. I think that most people watching this already will already know that. And I don't think I really need to go into that too much, frankly. If you're a Flutter developer, you already know the business advantages of Flutter. The fact that Flutter is the best way of writing amazing apps really, really quickly. I could talk all day about that, but I don't think it's very useful here, given kind of talking to Flutter developers. And I don't need to patronize you and telling you that, you know, time is money, and writing apps quickly and making them beautiful saves money and is a great business benefit. And frankly, if Flutter is as good as we say it is, then it's a no-brainer. It's self-evident. There are obvious cost savings and competitive advantages, better apps for less money, total design flexibility, owning every pixel, not having platform-specific rendering issues, unlike some other frameworks. And there is enough written all about this. So what is the problem? If we already know why Flutter is awesome, then why do I need to do this talk? Well, the problem is, we want to use Flutter, but sometimes some of the decision makers, CTOs, CEOs, maybe don't entirely trust our opinion about it. They don't trust Flutter. They need reassurance and trust. And to be fair, that's their job. They are paid the big bucks in order to do risk management, to make sure that we don't have to throw away all the code and start all over again next year. And that's a real thing, especially when companies like Airbnb have so kind of publicly abandoned React Native, things like that. I don't know any company that has yet abandoned Flutter, but you know, it might happen at some time. And this is a real thing that people care about, and we need to try to put people at ease. And the fact is, don't like saying it, but sometimes developers are wrong. Sometimes we actually get things wrong. I know that's shocking. And that we get overexcited about shiny new technologies like Flutter. And we go, this is the best thing, we must use this. And yeah, so I think we're right. I think most people in this room would think we're right about Flutter, but got some nodding heads around. But yeah, how do we convince some other maybe less technical people about it when we already know? And how do we remove the risk from Flutter and convince them that you can trust it? So I think there are three main things here. The big three things for me are longevity, which is, you know, will it be around next year? This is the number one thing. Then maturity. Is it good enough yet for your app, for your use case? And then the third one is people. Can we find the talent? Because that, you know, is an issue. So let's start at the beginning with longevity, which is beyond anything, the absolute number one, beyond anything else business question is whether Flutter is here for the long run. And yes, this is really boring. We all want to talk about how awesome Flutter is, how productive hot reload is, and instead we're basically asked to tell the impossible, tell the future. And we can't do that. How do we do that? So meet Bob. This is Bob. Bob is a CTO. Okay, Bob, that might not actually be Bob. That might be my dad, but you know, hey, let's pretend he's Bob. And he's a CTO. He has been around a bit. He's getting near retirement, and he's been in charge of various front-end projects since the 90s. And, you know, he's seen front-end technologies come and go, pass by like buses, and he's got a bit jaded. He's got a bit fed up of, you know, developers going, use this thing, use that thing. He's had excited developers come along, junior developers, like excited like puppies, wanting to recommend their favorite new technology. And yeah, he's gone along with some of them. And, you know, he might have been bitten by one or two, which, you know, either they've been phased out, or they are being phased out, or being replaced by something else, or they just didn't do a good enough job. And his number one fear with Flutter is that it's going to end up along with these in, you know, software heaven. And maybe that will happen one day, but I don't think it will happen for quite a while. But this is his number one risk. And so he wants to know the future. What do we do? Help. Well, great news. I actually was looking yesterday on pub.dev, and there's this great package called Time Machine, which is a date time library. And actually, really fortunately, they released an update last week, which allows you to actually travel in time. You just add this. It's just one call. It's great. Really, really good. And so I've actually been into the future 10 years and checked. And yeah, Flutter version 42, everything's great. It's got full Web3 and metaverse support, and actually comes in with one single built-in state management library. Absolutely, yes. Woo. So that problem has been solved. So there we go. All sorted. So yeah, back to reality, sadly. And we've all heard this. We've all been here. We've all had people bring this up, that Flutter is Google. I don't know why my mic is cutting out. Hang on, there we go. Okay, fine, good. Flutter is Google, and Google is Flutter. And there are a list here of 243 products and services that Google has killed off. And yeah, we need to not deny that, because it's really easy to go, that's not going to happen with Flutter. But that's not an answer. And it's not going to reassure Bob. And the thing is, we can't know. Maybe someday in Google, some high up new manager is going to come along and go, why are we spending all this money? Why are we spending all this money on this Flutter thing? But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And you know why? Well, Google are massively investing in Flutter themselves. They're still hiring for it. That's always, I think, the best sign. If they're hiring new people, they're using it themselves loads. And you know, frankly, I think it would piss off. Yes, it would piss off too many developers and companies if they just abandoned it tomorrow. You know, things like Google Cloud, they've got massive revenue from that, like $17.5 billion in the last year. I think it was even more than Wolt sold for. But you know, I would argue that none of this matters with Google. Because, and yes, this is my opinion, and yes, I don't know because I don't have a crystal ball, I think Flutter would survive if Google abandoned it. I obviously don't know, but I believe that Flutter has reached critical mass, and it has got bigger than Google. And obviously, I can't predict the future, sadly, but I believe that Flutter would keep going without Google, even if they did abandon it, even though I don't think that's happening. So we're going down a bit of an alternative timeline rabbit hole here, sorry. But especially with another few years of growth, it will be fine. And there are so many other companies relying and contributing to Flutter. You know, Sony, Amazon, Microsoft, Adobe, Alibaba contributing to Flutter itself or packages or the ecosystem. And most contributions to Flutter come from people outside of Google. I'm not entirely sure how it works. I can't tell you, and it doesn't really matter, but I'm convinced it would keep going, both by the community and the market. Developers love it too much. We want it there, and there are too many companies, as I've said, that rely on Flutter. And like, there are examples here of this happening before with other software. Take Blender, for example. It's a 3D bit of graphic software. It started development in 1994, and in 2002, the company that was developing it went bust. But it's still here because it was open source and supported by the community. And nearly 20 years later, it's still got maybe 3 million users. It's got a foundation that develops it with 24 employees, funded from donations, corporate memberships, and merchandise. Frankly, I think it's possible that Flutter could survive just from selling Dash socks and plushies alone. But yeah, The fact is that Blender survived because its users love it so much and it's so good, especially the same as Flutter. Our community, I believe, is too passionate for Flutter to die. But yes, that's just my opinion and a bit ranty. So I'm going to try and calm down here a little bit. The second one is maturity. Is it good enough yet? And is it good enough for your use case and your company's app, your specific case? And I've got great news there because, again, been on the web yesterday, and if you actually go to the Flutter repo, then don't know if you know, they've fixed everything. There's no more issues on it, and it's perfect. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I need to stop living in this fantasy land. Bob again. Remember how skeptical he is of new technologies? Well, I kind of think, from what I was talking about earlier, that we can be almost a bit too passionate for people like Bob. We can go on and on about how amazing and perfect Flutter is, and it can kind of harm our cause. And it makes him even more skeptical about Flutter when we are going, it's perfect, it's amazing, it does everything, it has no issues. And we need to be a bit careful, I think, as developers, to not do that too much. It can make Flutter seem like overhyped vaporware that's going to vanish tomorrow, even though we don't think it is, and I don't think it is. But we can all kind of be a bit drunk on our love for Flutter, I think, sometimes. So we need to take a step back and calm down. And many technologies have promised write once, run anywhere UIs. These ones that I was talking about earlier, for instance, and there are always going to be compromises and trade-offs with any technology. For me, Flutter is kind of the first one that doesn't have those massive compromises and huge trade-offs. It has some, but not deal breakers. And things like performance, app download size, compatibility, total UI customization, and accessibility. But the thing is, all of that stuff sounds kind of terrifying to Bob, when all these other technologies have promised the same and failed to deliver. And when we are saying that Flutter actually is that, well, how does he know that it actually delivers what it promises? And that's difficult. And he's not going to just believe that. So I think we need to take a step back and actually try to find some risks. And, my recommendation professionally when I'm talking to new customers for us is, yeah, we think Flutter is the best choice for most apps, but not all of them. And we I'm kind of really tried to hammer that home of, we look at it, but it might not be right. It's right for most apps most of the time, is what I think, at least. And yeah, there's a couple of times when I think Flutter might be the wrong choice for a company. The first one is, yes, when you have an existing investment. So for instance, you have invested a lot of money and time in the existing technology. If you have a load of world-class experts for React Native and you have an amazing app with a fantastic code base, then fine. It's going to be a really high bar to rewrite it in Flutter. And that's, cost saving is going to take a long time to come around. And also certain types of apps. Things like productivity apps. I would not write a word processor in Flutter currently, for instance. The text rendering stuff isn't just there. Companies like Superlist are doing an amazing job with Super Editor, but it is still early days. Writing Microsoft Word would be, really difficult in Flutter right now. And also the less mature Flutter platforms, web and desktop, maybe a bit more skeptical about those. And also if you've got huge amounts of native integration, maybe consider that it could be better going native, maybe, but only in some kind of fairly rare circumstances. And then the next thing is the inevitable comparisons with other frameworks. And yes, mostly our old friend React Native. I could do an entire talk just about the comparison of React Native and Flutter. And yeah, it's kind of boring, frankly, but it is important. And when you are trying to convince someone and they're just like, oh no, React Native is the thing that we use, isn't it? Let's just do that. And the really interesting thing there for me is that is people thinking of Flutter as a brand new technology. and a really, really recent technology, and particularly when comparing it to React Native. When you actually look at the timeline, it's kind of really close. They were both publicly announced in the same year, which is kind of odd, and I don't think this is something that Flutter developers often know. Flutter hit 1.0 in 2018. You know, when you look at it, you know, Flutter development started in 2014. Barack Obama was still president. It was over 7 years ago. It's not that new. And huge parts of Flutter are even older. You know, the rendering engine for Flutter Skier, that was started in 2004. Dart will be 10 next year. Some bits of it are really a lot older. So yeah, and Flutter 1.0, 2018, React Native 1.0, not actually happened yet, but you know, sorry, yeah, cheap shot. And the thing here is, I think about React Native and Flutter is they are really fundamentally a different thing, even though they look the same, especially to kind of non-technical decision makers, CEOs. Trying to convince them that they are different things is really difficult, and it's something that we need to do a better job at as a community. Flutter is just so much more. It is the entire stack, including the rendering engine, unlike React Native. And trying to convince people of that is really difficult because ultimately, right, they both do an app. They both, I mean, you know, I always kind of think that most of what we do is to paint pictures out of JSON, right? That's what apps are generally. We, you know, we can use either of these to make amazing apps, but Flutter is really fundamentally different. When you look at the architecture diagram for Flutter, React Native doesn't have most of this, and this is why people think of Flutter as a newer technology, because it took longer to get to a point where it could actually be used in production, because there is more of it. There is the entire rendering system. Unlike React Native, which uses the native iOS and Android rendering systems, Flutter does everything, and it is so much more than technologies like React Native. And in that regard, I view it as so much simpler, because it doesn't have to communicate with all these different other layers. It controls all its own layers. And that's where you get the kind of pixel perfect rendering across platforms, and you don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. But yeah, this is hard to explain. This is really hard to explain to non-technical people, and it's something that I've tried to kind of come up with ways of explaining it. Like, I've got a slide here that I've used in sales of going, you know, we want this button. With Flutter, you go, okay, draw this button, and Flutter goes, yes, sure, I'm going to draw it all. But whereas with React Native, just because, you know, it's got a custom gradient on it, if you want to draw that in code, you've got to talk to the React Native framework, and that's got to talk to third-party packages, and that's got to talk to native code, and that's got to talk to the native rendering engines. And of course, even with that complexity, just with drawing one button, you're going to end up with differences in rendering and platform-specific issues, which you just don't get in Flutter because it's simpler. And it's kind of weird there, saying that Flutter is bigger, but it's also simpler. And trying to convince people of that, I think, is kind of difficult. Yeah, so I think, you know, generally Flutter maturity is really good, and it is right for most apps, but yeah, there are some really difficult things to communicate to business people about that, particularly how Flutter is actually different. Then the third one I had is kind of people and talent, and it's a really tricky one. I don't really know how much to say about this because it is difficult. There is less Flutter talent around, and it is a problem. I think it is possibly the biggest issue with companies adopting Flutter now. Yeah, there are fewer, particularly very experienced lead Flutter developers out there, and I think that's a real opportunity, particularly for more junior developers, If you are wanting to become a lead, a senior developer, learn the Flutter internals now, do it. And there will be a huge demand in the next few years for senior lead developers. That's my view, at least. I really, really think it would be a great way of kind of pushing your career along and kind of leapfrogging, over other technologies, at least. The great news is that experienced developers can pick up Flutter really, really easily. It is so easy to do. We have done that ourselves at Codemate of taking kind of lead developers, architects, and I have been amazed at how quickly they have adapted to Flutter and made amazing things, particularly if they have experience of other functional reactive front-end frameworks, things like React, React Native. They can just pick it up and run with it. So yeah, it's a problem. It is a problem, and it will get easier over time. All the surveys show you how much developers love Flutter and how many developers want to work with it and want to use it. And I just think that will make the talent problem kind of evaporate over the next year or two. But it's difficult. And I think at the moment, retraining developers is the best option. And it is, it's fairly easy. So that's all I can say on that, really. It's a problem, but it's getting easier. So yeah, in summary, my kind of top things for kind of convincing business people of Flutter are find some risks. Try to actually drill down and find some potential issues to kind of convince decision makers that you've done your research, that there might be some problems, that you're not living in this fantasy world where everything is amazing and Flutter is perfect. Try to explain how Flutter is different. I think, as I've said, we can do a better job of that as a community. If people can come up with analogies and ways to explain to non-technical people. I've kind of tried to genuinely think of how to explain to my dad how React Native and Flutter are different. And I think not trashing other technologies is important. You can make great apps in any technology. It might just take longer and cost more. There are terrible apps and great apps in all technologies. And then this is something that I've kind of said to our customers, that we love Flutter, but we're not married to it. We look at other things. We check out other new technologies. I don't think that there is going to be anything better anytime soon, but being absolutely obsessed with it, I don't think is a good idea. And it's important to look at other options. So yeah, that's kind of, I feel like I've been a bit ranty and preachy today, but yeah, it is difficult, this subject, and it's difficult to convince people. And I understand why, people are scared of Flutter and why they view it as a new technology. It is kind of still a recent technology. And it's really, really difficult to convince people when they have got such a preconception against Flutter, when they have absolutely convinced themselves that it's brand new, that everyone uses React Native. I think big companies increasingly adopting Flutter is the biggest game changer there, because people like to follow big companies, and that removes the risk and makes it more likely it's going to be maintained. So sometimes I think you have to just kind of admit failure, and there is always plan B. If you want to use Flutter, if you want to develop with Flutter, and if you really, really love Flutter, and the plan B is quit. Sometimes it's just easier. Sometimes just join a company that already uses Flutter. It's going to be easier than trying to convince your CEO. That's an option. But I hope that people don't have to do that necessarily if they're happy in their jobs and can convince people. I've hoped that I've kind of said maybe some useful things about trying to convince decision makers. And yeah, thank you very much. Do we have any questions at all? Who is presenting that? I have no idea what happens now. I'm just going to stand here and talk. And shall I? Oh, hello.
Okay. Well, you can continue talking while
thank
we
you.
are waiting for the questions.
Yes.
If you have questions, please
Oh.
on the chat we are seeing from here. Meanwhile, actually, we can prepare for the next talk.
Mhm.
And okay, any questions from the audience? Okay, we have one.
No.
Just more than a question, a comment. When you say before that you know Flutter, it's important for Google.
Come.
I'm coming.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. So when you say before that Flutter is important for Google,
Yes.
you didn't mention Fuchsia, and I think it's something
Yes.
that you should actually point it out, because
Yes.
I think it's something that you should point it out.
Okay. Do you want to point it out? Go on.
So
You know more about it than me.
So basically,
And you've basically got the color as well on tonight. So
exactly,
yes.
Fuchsia. So basically, if people at home they don't know, there is a big commitment, I guess, for Google about developing Fuchsia, which is a new operating system. And long story short, Flutter is the primary way to deploy application on Fuchsia. And I think in the kind of mindset of Google at the moment, that's very important. So that's what I think it will guarantee that Flutter will not be shut down, like you pointed out before.
Yeah, and I agree. That is a really a big deal. Like I think Fuchsia is really interesting in what it's going to turn into, because we don't really know quite yet. It's being used for the home devices, but yes. Do we have some questions? Best state management? No, not this talk. 10 years, you find out in 10 years. Sorry? You'll cover that later. Okay, good. Yes. Thank you for
Yes,
your
Tom,
comments.
you are a very good speaker.
Thank you.
I told you.
Oh, very kind.
Okay,
Cool.
so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do you want to say something about your library?
Rootmaster, yes. Navigator 2.0 library. Yes, I did another talk a few weeks ago at Montel, and which is also on YouTube. If you want to know about Navigator 2.0, I have a library called Rootmaster, which is one of the many Navigator 2.0 libraries. And yeah, I like it, but otherwise I wouldn't have made it. So, but yes.
Yeah, Mike also,
Yes.
do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, Rootmaster in general. Yeah, I think it's.
You need to.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
real close like this.
Yes.
Yeah, so Rootmaster, definitely if you are looking into Navigator 2 packages, the one Tom has made is nothing short of fantastic.
Oh.
It is a beauty.
No, COVID.
Yeah. So, but there is always option, and that's good. And one of them might fit your needs better, and another one might not better. But it's
Yes.
I like the API on it. It's very clean and it's simple to use.
Thank you.
And it has smooth integration with things like button navigation and tab bars and also the Cupertino navigation bar. So that makes it really simple to use. Others don't do that as well. Even another famous one that I won't mention now, but it's also excellent.
Okay, so we have a question actually from the audience.
Hello. Yes.
Can you see the question, or shall I read it?
I can see, yes. Which one are you thinking of actually, though?
A fitness app. There was a question about a fitness app. I would like to ask if you think Flutter is good for fitness apps, or what kind of apps in general are good for Flutter, like maps?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the other interesting thing that actually I didn't mention, that I think sometimes there's a bit of outdated information available on the web. Things like maps and platform views now work so well with Flutter and have done for ages. Would it be good for a fitness app? Yes, I don't see why not. I mean, it depends kind of what you're doing there. That might end up, if you're talking to kind of fitness devices, a lot of Bluetooth communication, native things, but there are packages for
But
that.
luckily, we have a talk about low energy today.
Well, there we go.
Yeah,
this
Flutter
is
low energy.
perfect. Yes. And I have no idea, because I've never looked into it, about things like integration with HealthKit on iOS, but I imagine there are probably packages there, and it would be easy to do native integration. If not,
Do we have other question I don't have my glasses with me.
I'm-
Can you read?
It's an eye test for you. I luckily do. I'm scanning along for question marks. There aren't that many. So, how to get good at Flutter? Practice. Is that? I think that's
Yeah.
that's my thing anyway. That's I build stuff is my tip. There are so many online courses out there, but ultimately you only learn by actually making things.
And actually, Flutter docs.
Yes.
Best docs.
They're so good.
Yes,
They're so
best
good.
docs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good documentation.
Um,
Actually, I can
cool.
look whatever I look for. I mean, in the websites, original documentation of Flutter website. I'm surprised. Usually, whenever I study a technology,
Mhm.
I read anything but the docs. But
Yes.
for Flutter, it's
Yes.
really useful. Especially, I was working on animations. That was amazing.
Yep. Oh,
And is this one on? Yeah. If you're talking about the docs, then I would also suggest just read the source code.
Yeah.
It's excellent. The documentation in the source code is fabulous. And the beauty of it is you just always click into what you're wondering about. How do you do that? And it's just all there in the source code explained. Very easy to use.
yep.
Another question. Do you think Flutter will ever be able to call C#?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know that much about FFI. I have looked into it.
Yeah.
I guess you would have to kind of export the C# code to like a C library,
well-
and then that could talk to each other.
The thing is
But-
that Flutter works with mobile, web,
Yeah.
Linux, Windows,
Yes.
and Samsung Tizen.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
there's so many things to know about Flutter actually. And when
Mm.
there are these kind of questions that really like you can't know everything.
Yes. No. Exactly. And
It's really hard to master Flutter, like everything,
Yes.
every platform.
Yes.
Luckily, we have also today, we are going to talk about Flutter Desktop too.
Yes. Awesome. Great.
Yeah.
I guess that's a really interesting question. I want to know the answer to that because I guess with the kind of .NET being so cross-platform now as to whether you could call code in that. I guess you're going to end up with the .NET framework there as well. But I don't know. I think that could be possible. Everything's possible, right?
Yeah, I've been studying Flutter for
Yeah.
more than a year.
Yes.
I hear a lot about FFI.
Yes.
I don't know what it is. It's very normal not to know about these things because I've been studying Navigator 2 for months.
I'm really tempted to make something up now about what FFI is, but yes, it's a way of like calling C functions, for instance, like native Win32 library calls, that kind of thing. But yes.
What is about state management?
Later.
Okay,
I'm not
later.
doing that. I'm not doing that.
3D views. Okay, there will be many questions about Flutter, but this is not the only session.
Yes.
So we will cover as many as we can today.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Tom, again.
Welcome.
And yeah, now we have the other talk, and this time our guest is Team Wolt. It's not only one person will be presenting. This is gonna be a teamwork. We have John on the line, John Duran. He actually started our Flutter project at Wolt. So maybe he can talk more about it. He will talk more about it. So John, can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear.
Thank you very much. So the stage is yours, and then we will continue with our other team member at Wolt.
All right. Well, I'm sharing the screen, but I think you need to activate it somehow.
Yes, we are doing.
All right,
Thank
here
you.
it is. Nice. Well, let me present myself. I'm John. I work in Wolt. I started here like 1.5 years ago or something like that. And initially we didn't start working in Flutter, so there were other things that we need to work. I work in the retail team, so at some point in history of our team, we needed to build a tool for internal retailers, and we decided that maybe integrating Flutter into Wolt was a good idea. So in Wolt, we have this team autonomy, which teams are able to decide the tools they want to use, obviously after having some discussions with the people in the same area. So for example, in our case was mobile, and decide if Flutter was actually a good fit for the company and if we had the expertise to maintain it. So What I'm gonna show in this talk is explain how WALT was introduced. So I think it fits pretty well with what Tom explained in the previous talk. So how we convince and provide business explanations and reasons to introduce that in your company. And let's go to it. So who is me? Well, as I said, I'm John. I've been almost my whole career developing apps, mobile apps. Started doing some backend development back in the days. I started using Java, and well, Android was an easy choice. Didn't want to learn Objective-C. It's not my thing, and never been a fan of Microsoft. So whenever they started introducing Windows Phone in Nokia phones, that was not my thing. So I went for Android. And basically, as mentioned, during my whole career, I've been doing mobile apps. I've also tried React Native. So when I say that for a mobile developer, developing in Flutter is much easier, I know what I mean. I've been facing the pain. So whenever you start fetching or setting up your environment and you have your Flutter app running in 10 minutes compared to days of work in React Native, at least when I tried, then you notice when maybe there is something good in this technology. So before I joined Wolt, I was working in Fresca. Fresca is a cleaning company, and we decided to build a self-service platform. This is a company that operates in the Nordics. And from that app, well, you could manage your cleaning services. Well, and we decided that for such a size company, it was good to go with a cross-platform technology. And actually, it was a good timing because I joined in November, and as Tom mentioned before, Flutter 1.0, the stable version, was released in December. So we wanted to give it a go. And after 1 month of work, we were able to have our first version. So we noticed that Flutter was something that we could build with very low resources. So then we decided to continue that, and still the Fresca app is built in Flutter. I joined Wolt in May on 2020. And we decided that, well, Wolt was already a company where we had lots of native experience and also a React Native app. So our courier application is built in React Native. So why we wanted to introduce a new cross-platform technology? So we gave some reasons here. So in our team, we didn't have any front-end experience, but we had large experience building mobile apps. So we were 2 mobile developers. By the way, hi to Daniel. I guess he's listening. So I appreciated your helping here as well and building a good reasonings of why we wanted to build this in Flutter. And we were very enthusiastic in trying something new, introducing that. And at least one of us, me, I was working in Flutter for 2 years. So back in those days, it was hardly possible to find developers with Flutter experience. And well, we had one of the team. So that was kind of a good reasonings as well. And for example, I'm not sure if you remember in February 2019, I was giving a talk on the benefits of using Flutter in companies. It was in Cubic. So I was there as well. So I've been quite active in the Flutter community in Helsinki side from the early stages. And well, the very good business reason, there is always a need to have a business reason here, is like we were able to provide this application in lightning speed. So moving from that kind of seeding stage to have a production application in place, we promised that it could be done in record time. So we started, well, actually this is coming now. So we created the project the 9th of July. This was the initial commit, basically a README. But the project started or become stale for almost 2 months. So then the 31st of August, it was my first commit into the project where we added the login page. So basically we needed authentication in place. So that's the very first thing we did. And the 14th of September, so 2 weeks after, my colleague Daniel started. He didn't have any coding experience. So he learned Dart using this project. And basically, it was me and him working in the same code base. And magically, the 26th of October, we had our first version out. So if you check the difference between 31st of August and 26th of October, it's like 7 weeks of active working time that we managed to have it ready. And we not only did the basic hack that then you need to rebuild it again, the same code that was actually built during that time still remains in this application that is currently being under development. So that means that in 7 weeks, we managed to build a production quality application that is still maintainable. We added tests, so we are test passionated. We quality first in our team, and we decided to also give it a go. So whenever you need to test and validate that the technology suits you, you need to validate all the tools that you need to build a production quality application. That it was the purpose of the retail team Wolt. And also set up CI. So I remember it was a pain to set up the iOS continuous integration in, I think, remember like a week, when in Android I could do it in hours. So that also took some time. But the 13th of October, the whole team went to a Wolt market where we could all of us test the application. Obviously, there were some bugs that we were fixing those. That was actually pretty nice. Then we celebrated with beers. But meaning that when we decided to go with Flutter, which was some days before that my initial commit, until we were able to go to Wolt market and test it in production, it only happened like 2 months of work. So we decided to go with Flutter, and this is still a technology that is successfully being developed within Wolt at the moment. And that's it. Maybe there are some questions on our experience here in Wolt, why we didn't go with React Native or other ones. Maybe I'm happy to answer if someone is interested.
Okay, we are back to HQ. Do we have any questions in the chat? Can you see, John?
Yes, I see the chat.
Do you see questions to you? Or do we have questions from our audience who are the speakers, actually? We have speakers here. Okay, then we can continue with Masha. You can still think about the questions. Okay, Masha is our motion designer.
Hello,
And,
everyone.
yes, but we have a problem, I guess, with your screen, right?
It froze.
It says Webcam Utility. Okay. Let's just a second.
Should be some elevator music here.
Or you can use my own laptop, actually.
No.
No?
It's a bit different. Are you sure?
Come here.
Where's that computer?
Okay, we are doing high tech here. Sorry.
I can. Okay, I can start, and then I will just skip some slides while we are fixing the presentation. But hello, I am Masha. I'm not so good at speaking in the microphone, so I maybe need to adjust myself a bit. Anyways, I am a motion designer. I represent the product design team here at Wolt. Chattai kindly asked me to come and speak from the the design point, and I do motion design. It's my passion, so I want to talk about it here. Are we on? Yes. We are on. All right. So I do have a very nice first slide from our Wolt motion, and we can go to the next one. So as I said, that I'm a motion designer. I sit between product designers and developers. I don't develop stuff. I prototype stuff, and I also put the specs so that developers to make their life easier. And recently, so 2 years ago, I joined Wolt. Before that, I was at Nordcup. Probably people from Helsinki know about it. And then before, I was in the advertising when I was doing a little bit different type of motion. Okay, but what I want to talk about it now is you all know this MVP chart or pyramid or minimum lovable product. Sometimes they say it also. And I'm going to talk about the very, very top emotional design there, which is a very, very tiny section in the pyramid. However, if you want to build the MVP, you also need to take care of that from the beginning, from the get-go. And I have a very, very big presentation. However, I'm going to cut some of this off depending on the speed, how I speak. So I'm looking at Chattai, and when he tells me to stop, I will stop. If you are interested, I can speak somewhere else as well or continue speaking there. Okay, so we're gonna go through what is user interface motion, why it is important, when to use it, and how to achieve it. And there's a small disclaimer. When we talk about the UI motion, we don't talk about Disney, because when I say that I am a motion designer, my parents or some people think that I am making Pixar cartoons, and I have to explain them that what I actually do. And the thing is that it's not very noticeable in the app, which is funny because that person exists and it's me, and actually I do design them, but that's not the main purpose unless we need to focus on motion somewhere. However, in most cases, it's not the main purpose. It's like, I call it the helping hand to guide the user to the goal, whether it is to buy airplane tickets or order food or find a flat online. So any end scenario can be there. All right, so we will start with why. Why motion is important. It connects the dots. Basically, it shows you the transition between screen A to screen B. It indicates the spatial relationship of the elements and the flow between two states. So it reduces the load of a person understanding how he or she got there, how to get back, and this way you can build much more complex products and maybe deeper hierarchy in them. Second, it drives attention to where it's needed. So before, when we lived in the caves and in the forest, we were not the strongest kid on the block, but we were smart, we had brain, and we were basically hardwired to notice any movement from the predators, so we can rather kill it or run away from it. But basically, it's already now in our brain, and we're still triggered by the motion. And you probably can remember when you're walking in the streets, there's a lot of advertising shining on you and moving to kind of try to get your eye there. So in the product, in the digital products, we don't use it much. However, when it's needed, actually, it's a very good tool to attract attention of the user. And here I have the example that we actually have in our product. When we have a required field that is not selected, we basically highlight the required fields, and we also put the text in red and we shake it. And I will show you a bit later how we shake it, which is very easy. But anyways, so motion has a very good power to influence people's actions emotionally. And why it is so, in 40s and 1940s, they made this user tests or the study where they showed this cartoon to a group of people, and it was basic shapes, like basic triangles and a square, oh sorry, a circle. And then people started attaching emotions to the way how they animate it. So the way how fast you animate, how rapidly you do it, or if you make it maybe slower and smoother, people can attach already some character to the object. And there's a quote from Ollie Johnson. He was a co-author of the Disney book of Principles of Animation. And he said that you're not supposed to animate drawings, you're supposed to animate feelings. All right, here we go. The next one is that the motion holds the most powerful effect in showing the process. So when something is processing, loading, downloading, when you're submitting something, motion is the best to show that it is going continuously. Otherwise, people will think that the app has frozen, there's nothing, they will go back, they will close, they will retry. So there's many much bigger space for mistake from the user if we don't indicate that there's an action being processed. And it reduces friction. So in a way that we need to load stuff. We live in a not the super fast internet connection, or you're in the train. So it sometimes happens that we are fetching something and users are waiting, and there's this thing between the perceived latency and the real latency. And perceived latency is that how users feel how much time has passed, and real latency is that how much time actually passed. So when you attach some animation or motion, people are less prone to think about the real time. They're more distracted looking at the motion, and they don't feel that there's so much, time has gone into loading. So it also helps you to kind of keep the user at the place. Okay, so I also say that imagine if you're talking to a person, and the person is reacting to your words, to your actions, to your gestures, in words, in the way how they speak, how they move their hands, how they move their eyebrows. It's all about the character. It's all about the feeling, and that's what I think of motion in the digital products. So it's something that our users, when we ask, when they say that, I don't know, like we ask, like, why do you use Wolt app? And they say, well, because it feels nicer. They don't know what it is, but they say that it feels better and it feels nicer. And that's actually not the 100% of what, the motion's fault, but motion contributes to that a lot. All right, so the next chapter is when to use it. And I split it into two groups. It's functional and delightful. And let's go through them one by one. So functional is that when we want to communicate the hierarchy of the elements. It also when we want to minimize the cognitive load, when we're providing the feedback, when we want to mask the waiting period, when we want to indicate the affordance and focus on what's important. And the delightful is that when you want to create this cherry on top, this polish to show that this is a brand essence, and also that you want to increase the engagement between user and the product. We do have some time still, right? Should they? Okay, all good. Still have some time. Great. Okay.
Talk, so.
Yes. So I do have examples, and I'm going to talk about it and also to explain how it contributes to the better user experience. So the example on the left is the calendar. You all know calendar. It's a year, consists of months, consists of weeks, consists of days. So how do you go from a year to a month? So when you click it, you actually dive deeper. You open the month. And then when you click more, you open the week. So instead of the basic transition from the right, we actually have this custom motion there, or Apple has the custom motion there that actually dives there. And then when you go back, it dives back. And then the other one is the contact list, how to open the user from the contact list, so that we connect the states, and the motion shows you how you connect the states, between the list and the user information. All right, minimizing the cognitive load. The first example, maybe I can step back and explain a bit more. So when new information is being presented on the screen, people start analyzing what's that information before even reading that. So they kind of very fastly think, if it's one block, they think that's maybe one chunk of information. But if you split that block into the logical chunks of information, they, without even knowing, they already can scan through it, and they can see, okay, what afterwards it kind of makes them easier to understand where they need to stop in order to read the information. And the first example is the VR app. I was working there as a consultant before. So before, and I made this, the spinner. But anyways, so when we load the page, it kind of all the blocks, logical blocks, they come one by one with a short delay. And delay is like, you don't notice it that much. It's like 50 milliseconds, but it kind of makes it more fluid also, and also that you can kind of think that how to jump with your eye between the blocks. All right, the second one is the invention before I joined Wolt, but I want to still show it. It's our feedback system when you get the order. So we have the smileys and we have the tags. And when we show the smileys, they go one by one. So they don't go all as one. So they go, and you kind of start separating them already without even knowing what it is. You kind of already know that they are somehow distinctive from each other. Okay, next one. Providing feedback. Well, this is very, I think, very well known. Someone is typing. I think Facebook introduced that. But anyways, when I saw it the first time, I was like, oh, this is amazing because you don't have to stare at the empty screen and think, is that person, am I getting the message now or not? So someone is typing is a great feedback of like that is the action is, getting there. Another one is the wrong password. Yes. So that's a shake. I would say that with that, I would add also the textual information that something is wrong, like either the password or username. But the shake is a good indication, kind of saying that no, it's wrong. It's something that you need to attract your attention. When you're typing on the keyboard. And the third one is the basic loader. One more click. Yes, the basic loader. We are sending the verification, and now you got it. So we made it as a at Wolt, and actually that's a reusable component, and now it's everywhere basically. Yes. Whew, okay. Another part of providing feedback is gestures. I would say that motion is very crucial when there's a gesture, when we don't tap, so it needs to be very responsive. The app or the product needs to be very responsive when you actually tap and hold, when you do anything with gestures. So what we have now in the merchant app is that you can actually disable or enable an item from the menu. So when we go past that threshold by swiping, so when you go by that threshold that when after which you lift your finger, we kind of show that it's already will be enabled or disabled, so people understand that here they can already lift the finger, and that would be easier. This is the actual example I found many years ago when I was still in a consultant agency, and I was giving these talks. It's this website Any Day, Anyway, Any Day, and you basically load tickets, and it is conglomerate that fetch the tickets from very different sources. So what it does is that when you're waiting, when you click in search, and when you're waiting, they are loading the map, and also the airplane actually follows your mouse. And I remember when I used it, I was like more focused in trying to draw some kind of shape. I didn't even remember how long I waited there. And I bet if there wasn't that airplane, I would be like, oh, let's do it faster. Like, why do I have to wait for so long? So it's a great example to mask the waiting period, to use some animation there. Indicating affordance. Very basic example on iPhones, slide to power off, swipe up to unlock the screen. Let's go through that. Well, it kind of shows the indication, shows you what to do. I would say that it's a bit tricky. Some people don't understand it, some people do, but the text also tells you what to do, and also the motion reinforces the action. Another one is, the second example is our group order. So when you tap and hold on the group order bubble, we can delete that and throw it to the bin. You can also do it from going within the group order, go into the settings, delete the group order. But this is basically a faster function that when you start, when you tap and you hold, and the icon comes up. So you understand already that, okay, that's how you can get rid of these orders. Okay, focus on important areas. Remember, I showed you the highlight that we have. So what we did is that the first time you want to get something to order, we kind of gently highlight all the options and we say that you need to, fill these required options. And then from the second and onward, we basically shake the red screen. So we kind of distributed that the first one will show it to you like point by point what you need to choose, and the other ones would be, and that's a very simple thing, but it does the work. So why not use it? Another one is the example of, now it is scrolling. My pottery is my hobby. This is a website about pottery, but it's basically when you start scrolling and when you focus on something, you can see that the other elements of the web browser, they kind of hide away. And then when you start scrolling again, they kind of show up. So it's by minimizing themselves, you understand that they are not gone, like you can get them back, or that what happened. If they would be just in a split second, it might get a person confused, and instead of reading the article or browsing Pinterest, they would be like, what happened, what did I do, and how to get it back. All right. And the best one is Delight. I think that Delight brings the brand upwards. It's this very nice cherry on top that at least the Wolt app is very well known of. And here are the examples of I found on the internet, the rentals app. Basically scroll to refresh. They use these very nice buildings there. And I think that is something that, you don't need it, but if you have it there, people would be like, "Oh, that's nice." They're like, "Oh, And another one is the onboarding. I think in onboarding is great to have some custom animation also, because it's the introduction is the way how you introduce the product and kind of what kind of expectations users have, because I don't know the exact number, but I have so many apps they opened once and I just didn't use them ever again. And if you remember of the the first impression matters, they say. So if you remember that onboarding is great, you are more prone to come back to it. But I am not a person with statistical numbers. I am just speaking from myself. Anyways, the third one is our game. So when you're waiting for the order, you can play the tapping game. And that's great, because when I say things that I'm from Wolt, half of the times I say, "Oh, I love your tapping game." So people are like, we didn't have to do it. Someone just did it, and it's great, and it's there. So why not have a bit of that feeling on top of the whole experience? And now I want to show what actually designers can contribute to, so that developers, it would be easier for developers. And it's basically the Lottie library. I think everyone is familiar with that. It's designer can just make the animation or the micro interaction, and for the developers, basically plug and play. So that's what I do in the app, and I can show you 3 things here. So the first one is when you switch between the map and the list, you can see that it's so teeny tiny, this map and list, the way how they animate. And I was thinking, it's probably will be behind the finger. Probably no one will never notice that. But, people that notice, they might think that, okay, people really, really put attention in crafting this app. So I think it kind of increases the engagement. Okay, the second one is this empty space that we have. Something went wrong, you don't have internet connection, etc., etc. So there, instead of making the user, unhappy that they hit 404, we can have this animation, and they maybe they will smile, and maybe they will think, okay, it's fine. I can reload it or something else. So we have this, and we have a whole library of them. And basically from a development point of view, you need to support the library and all the updates in the library. But anyways, the animation, you don't need to animate SVG, because SVG animation for me is just pain. Another one example is our onboarding. So what we did is a combination of the animation, which is a JSON from Lottie library to with a text. So we animated the whole circle animation movement here, and then when I gave it to my engineers, just basically put the text on top of there, and now it's translated to 20 something languages, and it works great. Okay, I still have time. No, I don't have time. So that would be that would be for the next time.
Or is this like how many minutes? Because we have
I don't know how many
okay, okay,
I
that's it.
thought you were my meter.
Okay, so okay, while I'm preparing for the next one, maybe you can answer why we are talking about motion in a Flutter meetup.
Because you asked me.
That's a good question. And now I'm going to show some demo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because it takes 2 months to implement when Masha comes. Okay, I want this animation. No, okay, it's not that far,
Say
but
that,
sometimes.
please.
Yeah, I've been working on animation series to implement with Flutter. Masha came up and our designer's code came up. I will make a demo about it and I will explain more. But Masha, I'm really like amazed when you are presenting. We will have another talk in Flutter Global Summit. I will come back to that. But while I'm preparing, can you talk about how lonely do you feel in Helsinki about motion design?
How lonely?
Yes.
Yes, I'm pretty lonely. Anyways, I haven't studied to be a motion designer in digital products. I'm engineer by my education. I first started in like a motion graphic designer in the ad agency, and then somehow Google Material Design and Google Material Motion led me here. So I kind of got my profession by myself, and if there's anyone who does the same thing, I would be so happy to talk to this person and exchange some, topics and ideas, because it's like I'm really happy to talk to designers, but the designers have a lot of other topics to talk to, and I like to talk about, how smooth things move. And there's a lot why we move. We can animate it in 50 other ways, but we need to understand why we animate it in a very particular way. So it comes a lot from the, usability. Yes. Now you can go.
Thank you very much. You can have that. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to talk about, we talked about motion, now we are going to talk about design at Wolt, but yeah. Thank you very much, Masha. We don't get this kind of motion talks in Flutter meetups. This was very interesting and useful. Let's continue. So we have apps. We have more than Wolt app that you probably use the consumer app. We have courier app, and we have app for merchants, for retail business. And we have the Flutter app done in the done with Flutter. Okay, we have Flutter app for merchant app that retail staff is picking their the orders, like making the order ready. But in general, we have these apps, but we have the same design language. And I would like to talk about how our different apps look similar, give the same feeling. Okay, so we know about the Flutter architectural layers. Tom just showed this and talked about it. What we would like to talk about now is material, Cupertino, and the widgets layer. So how we differentiate our app. Using these libraries, using these layers, material widgets, Cupertino widgets, and the widgets library like column, row from Flutter, we have our own app, which is a different repository. And we would like to just show you, I would like to just show you a second. I'm having Wiser, yeah. So we have our, these are the styles and all the colors we have, and the icons we use in our app, some widgets here, and bottom sheets like this. And yeah, so we have these app components written with Flutter. And we use this in our app. So when we decide to build another app with Flutter, we will just use the same repo and use the same components, and they will look the same. So this was the first part, and how we look the same in Flutter Picker app. And then my talk will be really short because we took quite a long time. So Alessio, don't worry, you will have enough time. Yeah, okay, so continue. We will have another talk on 8th of December with Masha and Scott about how we do this animation. So you see the screenshots of an app. there is this bottom sheet, but it's a multi-page scrollable bottom sheet. And we want to look really like the movements. And when you change the page, it should look smooth. And this is really difficult to do with Flutter because in Flutter, before putting something on screen, you need to know the size of the screen, right? So you are switching from one page to another page. You need to know both pages. But in the end, you want to see one smooth page. So how we do it, we are going to explain this more in the Flutter Global Summit at 8th of December. But to do that, what I received from Masha is what you see on the right. So there are components here. You see that there is this back button, close button, and there's action button. So when you switch from one page to another page, we have the opacity animation, we have the position, size, and what else? We have quite stuff. So you see here buttons, how they change, how the opacity of the old button changed to, and then how the new page has the button visible. Yeah, so just to make a quick demo, I will explain here easier. Just a second. Yes, Wiser app. Okay, so this is a demo app. We have this home screen, and when you press generate, it shows the bottom sheet. Probably when it is on the remote, because of the refresh rate, you might not really easily see the animation, but let's continue. Let's see, but before that, Masha also asked me to do this. See, when you scroll up, there is this app bar title coming down. And then we also have elevation coming down, increasing. So how we do it in Flutter? I used flow widget in Flutter because I need to know the sizes of the widgets. For example, this select meme title, meme, select meme title. I need to know the size of it because when it is scrolling, the other one is coming down. Yeah, it's flow widget because I know the height and I'm painting in the paint stage using the flow widget. I will talk more about this because I want our talk to be less technical. Yeah, let's continue. So now let's add this. So welcome to, yes. Let's generate. So you see this size increases, size goes down. This happens really fast, right? Let's see now slow. I decrease the animation speed. So now this is what is happening now. Okay, let's continue. Choose this one. So see, it's pagination. The existing page goes left, the new page comes from right. So when I press this, you will see that this old page goes left, the new page comes from right. So, and also it's like this kind of animation. Yeah, all are these kind of things come from Masha. And in Flutter, doing this kind of things is really, really difficult. Okay, not difficult, but you need to understand. Let's continue here. You need to understand staggered animation, really good documentation at Flutter website about what it is. And the rendering pipeline. So we have animation tick, and then build happens, and then layouts and positioning, then painting, then compositing. So you need to understand what is going on here to make this happen. And we are going to talk more about this in the Flutter Global Summit at 8th of December. And also, did you see the form? I don't know, maybe we will share in the chat, but when you fill the form, we will have a raffle and we will give a free ticket to senior track in Flutter Global Summit. Okay, yeah, I already did the demo, but the source code of demo is already available in this link. This is my personal repository that I share my articles and the demo applications. And the one that I just demoed is the fourth one, multi-page scrollable bottom sheet. You can find other demos about theme and then navigator 2. Yeah, that is from Wolt. And thank you very much. Yep. Do you have any questions to me and Masha? And John already answered many questions. Thank you very much, John. Okay, do we have any questions from? Let me just give you the. Yes, this is.
So both of my questions are to Masha, actually.
Nice.
And, first, thanks a lot for the very insightful talks. I want to dig a bit more into the design talk and specifically about gestures. So you demonstrated how you can swipe card to the left and like dismiss it, so on. But I find that I also work a bit with design. But whenever I think of introducing gestures in my app, I say what?
You can come here.
Okay. Yeah, I always find it to be a bit of a dilemma between discoverability and interactivity. How do you make sure that a user actually understands the gestures, discovers it, and figures out how to use it?
Yeah, that's a good question. And to be honest, I am the iPhone user, and there are some things that I haven't yet discovered because they're so hidden that you need to actually swipe somewhere. I don't know, tap 3 times and hold and wait for 5 seconds. And so what I'm saying is that the gestures are great. However, you always need to have a backup version. You still need to have that people can type and find the same functionality from basic tapping. But gestures are for the power users. Basically, when a person already knows that it decreases the time, it's kind of so fast and furious there that they can just do it without.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without trying to find different buttons.
Yeah.
And the second question is more Flutter related, because when I think motion and Flutter, I instantly think Rive. Do you have any experience with Rive at all? I think that's the question.
The
to you
rescue.
then.
Okay, we heard about Rive. I've seen many presentations about Rive and many tweets about Rive as well, but we are using Lotti. Is it similar to, I don't know much about Rive actually.
Well, I don't know much about Lotti.
Okay, Lotti is just a JSON you animated. Anybody knows about Rive? Do you want to talk about it from the speakers? Surprised nobody knows it, but
Because
I heard a lot.
Rive itself is built in Flutter, which is interesting, in Flutter Web. And the runtime is very portable, so it runs across different platforms. It kind of feels like Google is pushing Rive as the primary tool for motion in Flutter rather than Lotti, because I think Lotti in Flutter uses native view, right?
Lotti doesn't have anything to do with motion, right? It's just an animation.
It's
So then I was wrong.
Yeah, it's the micro interactions and the illustrations that can be animated. Yeah, you can also make them interactive. So you can, for example, play from this frame to that frame if user presses the left button, and play from that to another one if user presses the right button. And why we go with that? Because I came from the motion graphics.
So After Effects.
Yeah, I used After Effects and motion graphics, and basically Lotti is that you use the same tool, and I really know it well, and I can animate everything there. So it's a very, After Effects is kind of complex. However, it's very flexible in order to animate it very smoothly. And I also, for example, I used Google's Shift something for the XML files. So I use it for micro interactions when I need to export something for the Android team. Anyways, I'm very open to if someone comes and say, hey, can we try it? I will try and I learn it, and let's see how it goes. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, let's have Alessio because we are a bit out of time, but it was interesting. Okay. Okay. So Alessio is a Twitter philosopher, Flutter philosopher, but he's very active on Twitter. I'm sorry. Okay, if you're a Flutter developer, if you're following Flutter community, you probably see Alessio a lot.
Twitter philosopher sounds good.
Okay,
Sounds
Twitter
great,
and Flutter. Okay, Flutter philosopher on Twitter. That's a good one, actually. You can type it to your bio.
Let me see. Can someone put my screen? Yeah.
Awesome. So the stage is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So hello everyone. I'm Alessio Salvadorini. I work in the Finnish office of an American company called IDT, where before I joined them, they mainly didn't know anything about Flutter, and after I joined them roughly 2 years ago, Flutter has been adopted, integrated into the native products, and then it's also used for all the new applications that are coming out now. So I have to say, quite a successful experience. The company is investing in Flutter heavily. What I'm gonna present you today, hopefully, is called, or I called it Flutter Architecture Components, or if you prefer, FAQ. So, so what is the rationale? My rationale behind this presentation? It started with the fact that I really like the simple state management. And that's what it's at its core of this presentation. So for all the people that before asked about state management, I'm going to try to cover it, I don't know, briefly. Then the idea was born when I look into the template for the Flutter 2.0, the skeleton template. And then I will have an appendix, which is about Android architecture components, because I'm coming from Android background. So I don't know, I assume that every one of us, these two guys, this is how it started. So on the left, at the Google I/O 2018, these two guys, these two Google engineers on stage in the summer, they introduced to us block business logic components. And believe me or not, but back then I just got to know Flutter, so I didn't actually saw this video when it was out. I got to know the video a few months later. But believe me or not, but 1 year later, precisely 1 year later, on the same stage, the same two guys, they redid the very same thing that they did in the first video, but this time with provider. So what is happening between these two videos in 1 year is that one very young, very talented French guy called Remy, he came out with provider, which is a wrapper around inherited widget. And it's very interesting in that video from the right, the one from 2019, because at one point they mentioned that Google developed their own provider package, but in the same video they recommend don't use our provider package, use actually Remy one. And this is how it's going nowadays, like we package or state management. There is set state, of course, which is built in, and there is provider and river pod. In this presentation, I will use provider and river pod as they are the same thing. River pod is the second take of the same guy over provider. Then there is block, which I just mentioned. Then there is Redux, and then there is MobX, and then there is GetX, and then there is Gedit, and many, 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 many more. If you don't believe me, you can just have a look at what Mike, which is here. So what Mike did, which is a comparison of all the state management packages out there. Very, very well done comparison. So basically, let's talk briefly about state management. What it happens is that first of all, you need to rethink the UI, especially if you're coming from Android or iOS development before Jetpack Compose or before Swift UI, where basically you have an imperative way to dictate to the UI what to do, like, hey, you text view set this text. No, stop thinking that way. You have to think declarative instead. You have to basically declare how is your UI and how it will look like at a certain moment. And basically you need to rebuild the full UI. The Flutter, it's a framework which is made for that instead of modify the UI. And that's the famous formula that the UI is a function of the state. We'll see it in a few. And then when it comes to state management, you need to have very, very clear what is an ephemeral state and what is an up state. Basically, ephemeral state is everything that can be contained in a widget. In this talk, I will use widget or scripts and pages in the very same way. It doesn't make any difference because you can see any widget as a page and any page as a widget. So it doesn't really make much of a difference in this context. Anything that can be contained in a widget, it doesn't need state management. And set state is perfectly fine. It doesn't really, it's all you need. And for instance, example of ephemeral states are if you have a page view and you want to know which is the current page, or similarly, if you want to know what is the current tab in a bottom navigation bar, or if you have an animation, you want to see what is the current progress. This all these states can be managed by set state. On the opposite, the app state requires state management, and it applies to anything that you need to share between two or more widgets or pages or parts of the app. So for instance, the login information, the user preferences, or if you have a news app and you have articles and you want to kind of remember which one you read, or you want to have click to read or unread them, and so for the shopping cart in an e-commerce application. In the flutter.dev site, there is very well documented the simple state management, which is also called pragmatic state management, and is actually the only officially documented state management from the site. It's based on provider plus change notifier. You need only basically provider, change notifier, and consume to do the simple state management. And it's very, very simple because you have your change notifier, which is just a class that contains your state, and it just notifies someone else about the changes. And the provider, it's the class that actually allows the UI to get a handle on your change notifier. And the UI basically consumes the state changes. So it's very simple, very simple. There is change notifier, which through provider notify the UI about the changes. And that's all you need to know. We'll get into example about that. Then the second part of this presentation is the skeleton template. So Flutter 2.5 was out a few months ago. I can't remember exactly when. And in the first line, you can see the command to create the skeleton if you want to see it. When it was out, the very same day, I just had a look at it because I was very curious to see if there was anything new compared to the default, counter application. This time, there was a very interesting application where you can switch between the dark and light theme of the application. But what it was very, very interesting to me was that they don't even use provider for the state management that I talked before, but they use animated builder. So they inject the change notifier directly into animated builder that can listen to it. So they don't even need any external dependency. But this is a tiny detail. Then when they have this theme selection in between or switch in between the light and dark mode, what I notice is that there is a setting controller and there is a setting service, which bring us to the core point of this presentation, which is they're hinting to a model view controller architecture, or MVC. And let's talk briefly about architecture. So what is an architecture of an app or of a system or of software in general? It's basically a way to decide the global structure of the whole system. So basically how the components of the systems, they interact with each other. If you think about, if any one of you has any experience about desktop applications, they are monolithic. But the mobile applications, they're not monolithic. Like if you think about an Android application, there is the background services, and then there is your fragments and activities and UI. All these are components of the applications. And to handle the complexity of these components, you definitely need an architecture. Good qualities of an architecture are separation of concerns, which means that any component must be separated from the other, and the responsibility of any component must be clearly stated and clearly separated from each other. And then you possibly want to have your UI driven from the persistent model. So the data model, it's possibly persisted, and you will drive your UI. And then you want to have unidirectional data flow. What it means that your data flow from outside the app, so for instance, from the server, goes all the way up to your UI. And it just goes linearly all the way. And on the other hand, what is called the call flow, so the user interaction, what the user does with your UI, goes the opposite direction, goes from your UI all the way to outside your app, possibly to the server, but not necessarily. Another part of what is an architecture is how you structure your folders. And definitely I would recommend you to use feature folders, meaning that on the left, you see of the picture that you will have only, under your source, you will have only your main, and then any folder, it's a feature. So you would have like, for instance, I have in this sample app, I have core, I have a localization, I have a Pokemon, surprise, surprise, it's a Pokemon application, and then I have settings. And then for each feature, you would actually apply the MVC structure, which you see on the right. So for instance, for any feature like Pokemon, it's one of the feature, you will have the controllers and the models with your data and your services, and then the views with your pages or your screens, and then your widgets. This is the kind of diagram of an MVC. So you see on the left, you have the views. You have many views. There is page A and page B and page C and so forth. And then in the middle, you have the controller. So you see controller A, and then there will be B and C and so forth. And then on the very right, under the data model, you will have stores. So store 1 and store 2 are used by the controller A, but the store 2 is also used by the controller B and so forth. And then each store can have more than one services, can orchestrate more than one service. We will go in details soon, but I want to hint or to mention already that you notice that the view have commands that they go towards the controller, and the controllers come back to them with basically rebuilding the UI. And then on the other side of the controller still forward the commands to the store, and then the store come back to the controller when something happens. So views. This is what you saw in the diagram on the left. It's the UI layer, and definitely any Flutter widget class belong to this layer and nowhere else, only to this layer. And then what you need to keep in mind is that views must build as fast as you can build them. That there is no exception here. You must just, when a view build, it just must build as straightforward as it can. As I said before, when I talk here about views, I mean a page or a widget. It doesn't really matter. As I mentioned before, for the pages or for the views, there is a state management. So actually, because state management take away the state from the view, then your view, it's literally stateless after that. So it just built. And this requires a little bit of an effort on any one of us, especially the people here in front of me, that you guys need to rethink the UI completely, especially like a movie. If you think about a movie, you think about the movie as something that is moving actually, but you know that a movie is a collection of frames, right? 24 frames per second, I think. So they're actually pictures. And Flutter UIs, they're exactly like that. They're just pictures. When you have a state, you show that picture. When you have the next state, you show the next picture. And that's even very complex animation, they actually are built this way. What it implies that you need to think about finite or eventually infinite state machines. So for instance, this is a snapshot of the sample application I did. It's very simple. It just shows some data on the UI. But now pay attention to, there is a small yellow line there below the title. And also at the bottom, there is a snack bar. So the yellow linear indicator comes in when there is some background activity. So when I'm doing something on the type of background, then I start to, it could be a spinner, but I prefer linear indicators. And then when there is an error on whatever I'm doing, then I show a snack bar. Now, if you think about, if someone would ask you as a developer to draw this UI, and you think about state, what would the state be? So there is definitely a status. And when the status is loading, then my progress indicator will be drawn. And when the status is something else than loading, then that won't be drawn at all. Then there is a list of Pokemon. So it's very clear if I don't have any Pokemon, poor me, I show maybe some icon about an empty page. If I have some Pokemon, I'm very happy about them and I show them. And also my kids are happy. And then when there is an error, which the status basically it's error, so it's not loading anymore, and there is also an error message somewhere, I can show the error message on the snack bar. So all these three parts, which are independent from each other. They're all part of the state of this UI. And the models. Now we go to the right side of the picture that I showed before about the data model. This is the models are the data layer. You in the data layer, basically you have many sources. It could be local source, so your database. It could be remote source, like the server, for instance. It could be Firebase. It could be a mock service. It could be anything. The important thing is that you decide what is your single source of truth, which usually should be the database. And then there is a little bit of a difference, because if you have a server, usually you want just to fetch data, and fetching the data, it's like a one-off type of operation. So you want to, hey, give me this data, and the server give you the data, and then you know, am I successful? Here are the data, or am I unsuccessful? I failed. Maybe I don't have internet connection. But there is also, for instance, if you use Firebase or Firestone, a different approach, because you're not fetching the data anymore. You're watching the data. So you're basically, you get a wave after wave of updates of the data. You get a stream of data. And that's very different than just fetch the data as a one-off. To handle that, you will need services, which are usually singletons, and you will need stores. Some other people here can think about stores as repositories. That they're similar, and they're also singletons. Now I will show you briefly a service. So basically, this is my Pokemon service. For instance, I just retrieve all the Pokemon and I store all the Pokemon. And I put it under an interface, and you want to do the same, because for many reasons, mainly because you want to mock it, and then you want, of course, to test it. So when you test it, it's easier when you inject the service as a dependency, if it's under an interface. And then it's very handy, because if you tomorrow want to rely on a totally different implementation of the same service, you can just replace the implementation, and the rest of the code is untouched. And the services, now in this case, I have only one that fetches the data, but I could also return a stream here of resources of list of Pokemon. Then there is the stores or repositories, if you prefer. Also, stores or repositories are very similar to services, so they're hidden behind an interface for the very same reason. And what they do, they orchestrate in between many services. They work as mediators between the web service, the cache, and the database, so the persisted model. And what they are actually, they are an in-memory cache in the application. As you can see in the snapshot of the code I put here, there are two interesting things. One is that you want to pass the local and remote services to this store in the constructor, and then the store itself, it's implemented as a value notifier. Nothing too fancy, something very simple. Now, here is the trick. This value notifier, it allows me to flatten both the stream and both the fetching that I mentioned before, because every time my service retrieves some data, no matter what, it will publish it to the store, and whoever subscribed to the store can listen to this, no matter where it comes from. Last but not least, the controllers, which are the man in the middle, definitely. This is the state management layer. So basically, they have two functionalities. One is that they want to declare the state of the UI, as we saw before, and then they want to listen to all the changes in the data model. And any controller can listen to as many store as it needs. And then what it does is that when there is some change in the store, it just take all the data that it needs, it parse them. So here is where your business logic happens, and it make it so that they can be presented in the UI. Now we can focus on the interaction between the view and the controller. So here you could use provider, you could use Riverpod, you could use the animated builder I mentioned before. They all do the very same thing. So you want to do so that when the user interact with your UI, then you want to send commands to the controller. And then on the other hand, when the controller change the mutable state that it holds, then you want to rebuild the UI. So let's have a quick look at how do we do this. So when you want to send the commands to the controller from your UI, you need nothing else that have a reference on your controller. And you get this through RiverPod. So I have my Pokemon controller, and then I have a change notifier provider, which is a class that will provide my controller to the UI. So the UI needs only to have a reference, and he reads the provider. So after the reading of the provider, he has the controller in its hand, and then he can call load Pokemon. So any command. Here you can say, like add one Pokemon, remove one Pokemon, edit this Pokemon, load all the Pokemon. You can just, the UI, when the user tap, click, swipe, and all of that, will tell to the controller what to do. And the note that the reference, it's a read, because you don't want to actually rebuild the UI in this point. You want only to have access to the data, so to the controller. The other direction instead, it's that you need to rebuild the UI when the mutable state of the controller change. So this is done again with RiverPod. As you can see in the code, you have ref again, but this time you will watch your provider. So the watch, what it does, it call again the build of your UI every time that your controller call the notify listeners. And in this case, there is a tiny detail is that I use the select on the provider. So because as you saw before, now my controller has three different states. There is the status, there is the list of Pokemon, and there is the error message. So in this case, because I am in the Pokemon list widget, so I want to rebuild this part of the UI only not when the loading status change, not when the error message change, but I want to build this only when the Pokemon list change. So I will select, select, make it so that the UI is rebuilt only when that particular value is changed. The other side, on the right side, the communication between the controller and the data model. For us, I use Get It by Thomas. I saw Thomas before in the comments. I hope you are listening to us. Thomas is the author of Get It. I forgot to mention before that I could have used RiverPod for both the sites, and I could have used Get It for both the sites. But I still, in my side projects and also at work, I prefer to use RiverPod for the communication between the view and the controller, and Get It for the communication between the controller and data model, because especially I'm working with a team of people that are coming from React Native. They're all new to Flutter. So this helps me to save and help them as well to separate what is what, and it makes it very clear. Get It implements the service locator pattern, so it's dependency injection. And basically, what you want to have at this level, you want to have a publisher subscriber pattern or observable pattern. So you want your controller to be notified every time there is a change in the data model. And again, similarly to what you saw before, there are commands that the controller needs to give to the store to change the data, and then the controller needs to listen to any change in the data. So when the controller needs to dictate to the data model what to change, it will have typical CRUD operations. So there is create, read, update, and delete. And how you do this is with Get It. So Get It, it has a registry, and you can register in the registry of Get It. In this case, I register the store. You can notice that I use it, Pokemon Store, it's my interface, but Pokemon Store repo, it's my implementation. So I register my implementation under the interface. Then my controller will access it through Get It. So get, and then the whatever I want. And now I have the store in my hand. And when the UI tells the controller that, oh, now you need to load the Pokemon, then my controller will just have the store reference, and then will just call retrieve all. Nothing else. This is the forwarding of the commands from the UI to the controller, from the controller to the data model. And the store knows what to do. It just provides all the Pokemon. But it doesn't provide, in this case, directly. How it provides that is, as I showed you before, with the store. So the controller, upon instantiation, will subscribe to any store that he wants. any needs, and then on dispose, it will just unsubscribe. This is nothing more than just a very simple callback. And when anything in my data stores change, the on-store updated will be called. Then I can go to the store, get the data that are inside. I can independently set them, and I have 3 calls here because if I have the same, for instance, status, and I don't actually even set it at all. And the same applies for the other 3, they're independent. And then I notify the listener because I'm sure that the UI will get rebuilt only in the part that have been changed, because I have that select for the 3 different parts of the UI. Last but not least, and we are going towards the conclusion, architecture components. I don't know how many of you are coming from an Android background like I do, but basically, if you look at the Android architecture components, they all still work also for Flutter. It's actually, I find it hilarious that now that they have Jetpack Compose, the Android developers are now discussing about architecture and state management while we are already there maybe a couple of years. But they are the very same ideas. At the very end of the Android architecture components page, there is actually what is called the network bound resource. So the resource is the class that bind your data with the status of the data, like you're retrieving, you're loading, or you have an error and so forth. The network bound resource means that whenever someone asks to your repository a resource of the data, you will go and see the local database. Do I have them? Yes, here they are. And at the same time, no matter if you have them or not, and if you are given them or not, you will still see if you need to fetch them. And if you need to fetch them, then you will actually go remotely, fetch them remotely, and then provide the updated version of the data. This means that basically when the user, for instance, kill the application and then re-enter the application, he will see first a local copy of the application, and then in a second time, you will be able to provide new freshly data. There is a should fetch method. It's quite nice because then for each data set, you can decide what is the should fetch period. So you can decide that if I'm talking about messaging for a messaging application, then maybe should fetch it in the terms of milliseconds or seconds. But if it's something longer, like, I don't know, bank transactions or something like that, then maybe the last, or house selling, that it lasts, maybe many weeks, then maybe your fetching data wouldn't be in the order of the milliseconds or the seconds. And it's also quite nice because you implement a class if you go with this approach that is maybe 70 to 80 lines of code, documentation included, and then you can reuse this class because this class delegates to each data only very few parts of it, a few lines of code, and then you can just reuse this class which implement that algorithm. So going towards the very end and trying to answer some questions I saw before in this chat, there are many different type of architectures, and definitely some are more complex than others. And believe it or not, what is the best? It depends. There is not a straight answer to that because it depends on the type of application you are building. It depends on the requirements, and it depends on your data set and data model. And what I feel like the only part I feel I could recommend to you is that the code. I truly believe that any code, it's a reflection of your mental model. So in this case, because architecture is also code, I think that the architecture should be decided at team level and not by one guy closed in one room. And then people, all the team should be aligned on the architecture, because it's very important that you understand which part is what of your code, and why what is the reason, why is it there, and why is this responsibility. And I'm done, but I have a little bit of an extra, which I want to show. Just I want to show, where is this guy? So I want to show, I made the sample app about Pokemon, so my kids were happy. And if you catch them all, basically, this is going now against the real API. And so far, it didn't have any cache data like I showed you before. So you went all the way, there is no cache data. You saw it kept on spinning or actually sliding, and then it went to fetch them remotely. Now, you can think about this like, I don't know, me and Tom, we are sharing all the Pokemons that we caught together. So this is a shared Pokédex, right, Tom? Yes. So now, meanwhile, I go back and go back to the app. Tom was very good. He was able to catch one more Pokemon. So the moment I enter again, I will get one more Pokemon. And this can happen as many times as you want. And as you can see, oh, I forgot to show you. Basically, this is also very, you can interact with the app as much as you want. It doesn't really matter. So while it's loading, it's a type of background operation, and then you load the data. This architecture gives you the flexibility also to implement something a la Twitter. So if you want, you will show to the user here like, hey, your data has been updated. There are more messages, and then the user click and you just show them. And that's basically it.
Okay, thank you very much. So did you see some questions? Because I still don't have my
I
glasses.
I didn't pay attention.
Okay,
we
it's
can look.
strange. This is state management and we don't have questions. Okay, well,
How was your experience with DI libraries, Gedit and others? Any gotchas for DI in Flutter Dart? Is there a mature tool for running instrumented tests with Flutter? Oh, hard question. So Gedit, definitely. I recommend everyone to use it. And Riverpod, as I said, these are the two only dependencies that you would need to use for basically having, like in this case, a scalable and simple, I would say minimalistic architecture and application. And what was the rest of the question? There was something about the instrumentation tests. I don't know any mature tooling. Maybe anyone else here?
So how about instrumentation test and how is it related to state management?
So instrumentation test, it's basically one of the three level of tests.
No, I mean, how is it related to the state management? So I missed that point.
Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
how it's related.
Okay, let's stick with the state management.
But I guess is hinting that you want to test your state, I would assume.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't have glasses. I can't really read, but I'm sorry.
Great job, Alessio. Thank you, Marco. Nice to.
Okay, well, we can prepare for the next talk. And Lauri is here. We're presenting Lauri from Montel. And the topic is Bluetooth Low Energy. It's my favorite topic because I'm originally a telecommunications engineer. Yeah, okay. Alessio also has a telecommunications engineering background. So I wanted to do more application layer in the network layers. So the easiest way for a telecommunication engineer is to switch to Bluetooth applications. And I started with Android and iOS. And it was 2012. There was no Android and iOS support. Actually, there was iOS support. But then I was working with third-party Android libraries. And then Android supported Bluetooth Low Energy. It was, what was the first version Android supported? API.
I have no idea.
Okay, yeah.
I trust that you do.
It was 2013, I think. And it was really a big pain for me. I was a research assistant. I had to measure how it is working. So yeah, I'm sure now we will hear more about the pain points about Bluetooth Low Energy or Flutter. Or is it pain, first of all? Do you enjoy it or not?
It's all enjoyment.
You're enjoying
Yes,
Bluetooth Low Energy?
yes.
How about Huawei devices? Does it work well?
Well, okay, no, let's not go to Huawei.
Okay.
That's the pain. Yeah.
Okay, then stage is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, hi internet, hi local people. I'm Lauri from Montel. At Montel, I'm one of the founders and currently the COO, and most of my days are spent working on a lot of front-end related technologies and even designing some user interfaces, except when I'm working with Flutter. With Flutter, I'm basically the plumber who does the pipeline building in the background and helps other people then do the amazing user experiences with the components. And today I want to talk to you about Bluetooth Low Energy, which is basically the tool we use for interacting with the bizarre electronics that we built with. Some examples can be robotic teddy bears and then motion sensing technology that we'll see a bit later on. But during this short talk, I'll give you a short introduction to what actually Bluetooth is, what is BLE, how it works, what the history is, and then we'll dive into Flutter and an actual demo that I hope doesn't explode too badly during this presentation. Well, of course, you all know what Bluetooth is, right? It's a wireless transmitting thingy. It's less in range than Wi-Fi, and you probably use it with some speakers, headphones, and smartwatches. But what many people don't know, that is actually in two parts. There's the classical Bluetooth, and then there's Bluetooth Low Energy. And in many cases, Bluetooth Low Energy is now the interesting new kid on the block, getting a lot of attention, mostly because it saves a lot of power, and it's also somewhat more flexible and interesting than the classic one. It was actually, the low energy side was originally developed by Nokia as an extension to classic Bluetooth. It wasn't directly compatible, but it used the same antenna and the same spectrum. So basically the same hardware these days implements both classic Bluetooth and the low energy side. It has massively lower power consumption. We're talking about 100-fold less in some applications, and it has more network topologies and such, but it's on the pain points, it's a bit slower, and it can have a bit less range. These are things that are also somewhat debatable, but good to keep in mind. In an overly simplified way, your smartwatch is probably talking in BLE, while as your headphones are talking in Bluetooth Classic, because they need to transmit so much more data over the audio stream. Well, how do you actually then build Bluetooth stuff? Well, Bluetooth devices are usually characterized by profiles. So you have profiles that say that this is a thermometer, or this is a printing device, or this is some kind of sports tracker. And there are maybe 50 to 100 different profiles, and devices can implement several different profiles. The idea here is it's kind of an API. It gives you an idea about what the actual device does. What is actually crucial here is that all of the profiles are built on this thing called GATT, and which is the generic attribute profile. And GATT is basically how you interact with devices. So I would say maybe 95% of the profiles follow this GATT principle, and the idea is that there's a client and a server, so one-on-one connections. And a GATT has a bunch of services, and each of those services have a bunch of characteristics. And these are actually the key thing here. So one characteristic can be a data value that can be read or written, or that can be listened for changes. And then through these characteristics, you basically interact with your Bluetooth device. Now, of course, when you have characteristics that can be read and written and that can be listened on, you start to get the idea that, okay, this reminds me of serial communication, or something really simple that you can do with devices. And this is actually what a lot of people do, and all of our devices also implement this. So Texas Instruments, Nordic Semiconductor, MT, all the big players have implemented their own serial services over Bluetooth Low Energy. And these are super quick and flexible and really easy to set up. So you basically just decide on your protocol language or your API, and then you just build on it, and that's very fast to go forward. The problem, of course, is that, well, the BLE stack isn't the fastest one, so there's some latency in the serial communication. And of course, it's not going to be interoperable with other devices. You're not building an official profile. You're just hacking something to get together and hoping that it works. But usually this is not a problem, at least for our stuff. We just want it to work on our apps and not other people's stuff. I did a quick Google on how you actually can do BLE on Flutter. I'll explain in a second why I did a Google. These are the 4 top libraries right now for doing BLE stuff on Flutter. The biggest winner here seems to be Flutter Blue, which I'll be using in the demo in just a while. It also it does say that it's alpha quality, so I wouldn't take it too seriously in very crucial applications, but for most parts it works really well. And then of course the option that we took is rolling our own. So it's not that hard. We've written our own Bluetooth library for iOS and Android, and it takes maybe 2,000 lines of code. And with Flutter and with the method channel and the plugin architecture, it's actually quite enjoyable and really fast to get started. You'll need to do this if you want to do some fancier connection parameter tweaking, or if you want to use some platform specific things like Android companion apps or something like that. Anyway, whatever you choose, the process is always the same. You run a discovery process if you haven't found your device already in a previous one. Then you connect to that device, you ask what it provides, and you set up listeners for any characteristics that might change. Then you basically start sending messages and receiving messages, and at the end you want to disconnect from the connection. Disconnecting is a good idea because lingering connections on Bluetooth on the Android phones example are really a pain when you're doing development on a fast pace. Right, enough slides. Now it's time for a demo. I brought with me 2 Kick AI sensors. Is it possible to actually get the camera to show from my local laptop? That would be really handy right now. Alessio, is it probably possible to get the camera? Thank you.
So I can
actually show you.
Can you unmute?
Let's see. It looks like this. So 2 tiny devices. Are we back online? Oh, yes. Something is happening. Fantastic. Now we have several cameras, but no screen. Yes, I would, if we want to look at the code and not just me.
And I'll press through the button.
Okay, sorry. Now
Are we back?
can you talk now?
Do you hear me now?
Can you talk now?
Yes. Maybe we can live without the small camera.
Fantastic. Still no sound, says the chat. Okay. It's working? It's working. Okay. It's working? Good. Excellent. So quick look through the code. I guess you guys at least saw the video screen, so how the app looks like. But let's look at what the actual buttons do. So there's 3 buttons. This is the default app, the default example app you get out of Flutter. So nothing special. Let's take a look at the bottom. Those of you who speak fluent Flutter understand that, okay, here's a definition of 3 elevated buttons. And the first one will scan and connect to a proper device. The second one will run some commands on that device, and the third one will disconnect. So let's take a look at what the scan and connect thing first does. On a higher level, actually, I want to mention that the only dependencies installed here are now Logger and then Flutter Blue. So 2 libraries needed. Logger is just for fancy logging, nothing more important than that. How we use this is with an instance of Flutter Blue, we start to scan for devices and we give it a duration of 5 seconds, after which we give up and say that nothing was found. Scanning will produce a lot of duplicate results, so we want to carry only the unique ones forward, and that's what we do here. And then once we're done, this is a bit of a hack for demo purposes. In 5 seconds, after 5 seconds, we're going to be looking at the list and find the first Kick AI named device there and connect directly to that one. Usually you would probably have a UI where the user can pick like one device that looks familiar from a list of devices, or you would automatically connect depending on your application. But here then, once we've scanned enough, we first print them because we want to see a list of devices. Then we look for actual Kick AI devices, and here asynchronously connect to one of those. We wait for 10 seconds, and if the connection fails, then boo-hoo, then we don't do anything. The next thing is that we look for services. So these are now the Bluetooth services implemented by that Bluetooth device. We'll put all of those and their characteristics into a nice little map, and then we'll print them at the end. So basically looking for the device, connecting to it, and just printing what it can do. Let's see if this now actually works. I'm going to first activate one of the devices by shaking it. It blinks, which means that it's currently available. I just pressed scan and connect, and we can see that something happened. So we saw this many Bluetooth devices, quite a lot actually, but only one was named Kick AI. We connected to that one, and then we analyzed what it can do. So we can see that it has 1, 2, 3 services. The first service has 1, 2, 3, 4 different characteristics, and the later one has 2. And actually the service we're interested in is the later one. This is Nordics implementation of a serial connection. Now, the second button that I have will actually play with the serial connection. So we'll look for the services of, here we are, look for the services of that device we connected to again. And because we read the manual, we know that these are the services we're interested in. And we'll look for those exact characteristics again through the discover services process. And once we've found those characteristics, we set up a listener for the characteristic that's supposed to send us some stuff. And then to the other characteristic, which is then the inbound messaging, will first turn off all the lights in this RGB LED that we have here, and then turn a random color on. Because these are commands that we programmed to these devices, and I know that they're going to listen to these commands. They work, hopefully, but they don't actually return anything. So at the end, I'm going to also be sending a command that says version, and I know this will then result in the device giving it a string version of what the firmware is that it's running. But let's have a look if this works. I'm going to press the button, and then hopefully this thing will change color. Green, good. Red, good. And in the background, we can see that we're printing the current version of the firmware at the same time. So super simple way to communicate with another device over Bluetooth. Last thing here is then, of course, the most crucial one, which is disconnecting. So I'm going to press disconnect so that the connection isn't lingering. The Bluetooth, the LED turns off, and now it's again available for a new connection. And in all its majesty, that was it. You can find the source code on GitLab. I can put the link somewhere else as well, but here's the link. In short, it's super simple, but it gets something done. And now I think you're all ready to start hacking on those scooters you find by the streets and take it from there. Any questions or comments?
Do we have from the comments?
It's all about the sound.
Mike, do you want to? More. Yeah. Well, question, okay.
Yes. We saw you set up this Bluetooth connection. How long did it take you to get into getting the first communication and everything set up with it to work in Flutter? Because it's not a thing that people commonly do to start, with Bluetooth and looking into that. And
I think when we started, this was years ago, and there weren't any BLE libraries available. It took we were doing it in native, so it was more of a question: how long does it take you in Android to get that running?
Yeah.
And that took quite a bit of time. But now with Flutter Blue, it was actually I did that demo in maybe a few hours, so it's super fast.
Wow. Well, there you have it. I think that's really a testament to the packages that are native plugins that help you get kickstart those kind of things. But would you do it again if you didn't have that plugin? I mean, you made your own plugin, and that seemed to work well as well.
I would. The method channel, and one of the reasons why we actually switched from React Native to Flutter was the fact that it was so much easier to bind into native code, and I would still do it. It's super simple, and we are constantly developing our own plugin or our own Bluetooth system with other projects, so it keeps on growing.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Are you planning to have a comparison for BLE packages?
Well, Chattai is kidding here a little bit because he knows I run on Flutter this comparing state management systems and navigators, etc. So now he's wondering, are you going to start comparing Bluetooth? But I don't think there's that many of them, so there's not much to compare.
You'll have 5 maybe.
Yeah. Well, 5 is good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And a question about iOS side: is it really like restrictive for Bluetooth from Bluetooth point? Is it like is Android more easy to get? Information, I would say.
Yes, I think on iOS side it is a bit more restrictive, looking at number of devices you can connect to at the same time and what kind of permissions you get. But overall, I think at least code-wise, we have a lot less iOS code than Android code. So again, hard to say.
And we are talking about mobile, right? Mm-hmm. Mobile Bluetooth Low Energy. Yeah. Is there a way to connect to desktops, or I don't know, maybe? Just a question.
I don't actually know that. At least one of the pain points is that you will have to be developing on top of a real phone. So the emulators don't, I don't know for what reason, but don't support Bluetooth at this point. So I don't know if the desktop Flutter would either. Would be interesting to see though.
Yeah. And one last question: how is it to work with these packages? Is it like maintained well, or like?
Well, the Flutter Blue that I have, 20 lines of code of experience with seems to be quite well maintained. They are fairly critical of their own work because they say that they're on alpha, but it seems to work just fine, at least on these rough tests. Of course, then when you go into things like security and encryption and those kinds of things, of course, then you'll maybe want to see how that actually handles those cases.
Okay, and very last question. So if I have an idea about, like, I have a device, I want to have a product which is working with Bluetooth Low Energy. So it's a startup. Is Flutter as a safe bet to work with BLE?
Yeah, I don't see any risk there compared to any other alternative you can pick. I mean, then the crucial picking is what kind of chip you'll use in your actual device and who you'll could be dealing with on the hardware side.
Okay, thank you very much. This
Thank
was really
you.
interesting.
Thank you.
Okay.
There are a few questions
Oh,
there.
okay. Can you read?
I can read them. So how many concurrent BLE connections can you have? I think that's fairly hardware limited. I think we've had success with 8. Some mention 16. We have a device that works with a lot of concurrent connections, but that's then with beacon technology in Bluetooth. So that's not a GOT one-on-one connection. That's a Bluetooth BLE beacon that you can then use. Then there's another one. Is there a way to send text messages over Bluetooth on a phone? I think there is a profile for that in the official Bluetooth special interest group profiles, but I haven't had any use, so I can't really say if there's a Flutter library ready for that. Then Albert is asking, is the BLE connection maintained by the whole device or is it owned by the app that launched it? Depends on the implementation of the library. Our system uses a background service. So basically when your app dies or if it closes, it still remains open in the background. But then at least for the Flutter Blue, when I closed the application, it also closed the connection. Unless it crashed, then it didn't. So,
does it make difference between Android and iOS? Or?
There is probably a difference and depends again on the native implementation and that sort of stuff.
So keeping a background service with iOS with BLE is doable?
Is doable, yes. I have more experience on Android side and there it works just nicely. Yes, I think that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
you very much. And Mike now is the next speaker. Mike is also quite active on Twitter. You probably have seen him. And he has packages on Flutter theming. And also he has extensive knowledge on corporate business, also Flutter desktop. So yeah, today he will talk about Flutter desktop business and how portable is Flutter code to port it to desktop. Mike, I will just share the screen.
How does this?
It should work. Let's test it. Are you comfortable?
I guess. Does it work? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we hear you.
All right. Very good.
Thank you very much. Let me share your screen.
All right. Thanks, and Chattai, and welcome to the last session of the day, I think. And I have the sort of joy of talking about Flutter desktop and beautiful business with Flutter desktop. I'm Mike. You might, as you heard, know me from Twitter. I'm there quite often. I tweet about pretty exclusively about Flutter, so you can find me there, and I might have something interesting to say from time to time. Professionally, I work at a company called Eneron, and we're just a small prop tech company that that focus on energy efficiency for buildings. Our customers are typically large property owners with a big portfolio of buildings, or big corporate customers that operate in a large number of different buildings where they are responsible for the energy use in the buildings. So we use mostly a web service today, but we are moving towards more of a mobile first and software service only. Today we are also doing a lot of consulting work, so it's also that. But we started moving forward from traditional web things to mobile, and also talking about how to extend the mobile experience from your mobile to an integrated workflow that sits and integrates and works well on desktop as well, so that people in the back office are comfortable with that. And that is something that I realized that this is a very typical corporate workflow that you have to deal with quite often. And Chattai sort of raised the bar for me with saying I have a lot of experience in the corporate world and business, and yeah, that's kind of true. I'm an old timer. I've been around for a while. So I've worked 20 years with different big corporations like Datex Omida that got acquired by General Electric, and Cargotec, Kemira, and other companies like this. And I worked typically in ICT management roles where I acquired a lot of software, and you use these corporate boring things like ERP, CRM, supply chain management, all kind of funny stuff. But we also bought a lot of software, a custom sort of permission software that were designed to attack and address certain parts of the workflow. And that's where I have a background also. Crazy old desktop UI. What's going on here? This is something really crazy and a busy desktop user interface. Definitely not from today. And the thing is, this is a 28 years old user interface made in Visual Basic when I was working for a company called Genencor International, where we used this as a UI kit. And it was really fun and exciting to build user interfaces with Visual Basic because you didn't have to bother with all the technicalities that you have to do. And exactly the same feeling that I got when I started working with Flutter and building the first user interfaces. This one, by the way, was also fully reactive. Everything was connected and collected information from several different instruments. The impeller rotated, the flows moved, numbers updated as things happened, and it communicated over serial interfaces and other interfaces. So these things worked already back then. But when I first kicked up Flutter, I started in 2018 with it and didn't actually get into desktop until 2019 maybe, but I was immediately hooked. It was a fabulous experience, but it was not ready at all. But still, it was fun. And it was really exciting to try it out that early and see how it worked. You had to do a lot of funky setup stuff to get it working back then, but it was very exciting to see it. So today, though, Flutter Desktop is pretty ready. I mean, for most parts, it's there. There is still, it's still beta, so you have to recognize that. And I'm going to talk about 4 areas where you know how to use desktop today. The first one is obvious: use it in your dev workflow. For gosh sake, you're going to kick yourself later if you haven't tried it yet. But you should do it. Even if you develop a mobile apps, it's such a great experience to use it for that. I'm going to come back to a little bit sort of a demo. And the other topic is for desktop corporate apps. It has a really nice fit there in the workflow. And then, of course, you can use desktop to showcase your mobile apps. And remember always to make the apps pretty too, because it's a lot of that. We saw a wonderful presentation today about motion flow, and that is really beautiful thing. So yeah, your desktop workflow. Definitely your mobile workflow. Definitely use desktop for that. It's such a time saver. It's much faster, even though emulators and devices are very fast. And Hot Reload is a wonderful thing, but it builds so much faster when you build for your native desktop and use that. And you get all the benefits of building your responsive applications in a much smoother way. And it's easy to test different media sizes. The downside is if you're doing it as a replacement for mobile development, you will need to sort of make mock facades for things that only exist in that. But probably you are making those anyway because you want to test your applications. And when you do that, you get great testing capability. A quick way to demo this is with the Flutter Gallery app. You all know it. You have seen it. It's available as a nice web application that you can run and try whenever you want. You know, it runs on web. It's fine. Everybody has seen the Gallery app. But you see, as I resize, it's a little bit sluggish and slow, but it's doing its thing on web. But let's back up a bit and say that we we build this as an executable for desktop, and I'm just going to kickstart it up. I loaded it, launched it, and it's running. And this thing is fast. There's no sluggishness in this. This is a wonderful thing to use. The other one was a little bit sort of okay, it works, but it's not quite there from a user experience wise. Whereas this one is great. By the way, this is a great test build to do also. The gallery app is actually 80,000 lines of code almost. Whereas half of them is like over 40K is what I call metacode, because the application contains code that shows the code you need to make the thing it shows. So that's a little bit sort of an extra bit, but it's still a nice build to try for desktop and to make a release build from it. So let's go into a little bit about why desktop. I mean, everybody's about mobile first. I mean, I agree. That's where the things are happening. You do in corporate world, you typically talk about field work, inspections, on-site services, repair, all kind of availability checking, scheduling, all the things we do today. Same thing when we go into the tablet, you have the same use cases. Yes, we agree on that. But often you can have it like in a warehouse or pickup scenario or technical information where you need to see a little bit more information. So that is a little bit different use case in also in the corporate cases. And sometimes it might be the reverse, where you have just a big point and click UI for ordering something. I want that to the table now. But then, of course, okay, why not just web? Well, I think the application I just showed you demonstrated that a little bit, because it is not the same smooth experience that you have when you do it. It can be right, you know, if your app requires zero install, you have occasional drive-by users that are only going to use it occasionally, then by do all means give them a PVA option as well that they can just go to and start using right away. And also when you're in active development phase of the application, it might be the right choice to sort of just give them the web version first that they can play with while you're still sorting out the nicks and knacks out of the application. But for the corporate world, and people asked me when I hooked up this machine here that, why do you have a Windows machine? Because that's what the corporate world uses. Let's get real. The hard data grinding work in the corporate back office happens on Windows PCs. Information processing, handling workflow tasks, they use rich and fast desktop UIs with a lot of tables and charts, visual analyze, interactive reports. And that is what desktop enables you to build. And the neat thing is you can deliver all this mobile experience and on the go that they need, and offer them a consistent process and user interface over the entire steps that they do. And you can finally tell them that, yeah, we can give you your iOS app, yeah, and Android, and yeah, you can have slightly different user interfaces with more information on the tablet, and yeah, you get your PVA as well, no problem. And hey, your back office guys, they can have a desktop app. Oh, what? And you can do it at a cost level that is reasonable, that you know your customers might actually say yes to. Before, that was quite prohibitive in the scenarios for this. So I'm going to go out on a limb, but try a little bit of a desktop demo here that is going to look crazy when I start, because let's see if I can find my, do I get it to work? Yeah. I'm going to have to do like this probably to it. Okay, that's more safe. So yeah, say you agreed to deliver an application for a customer. It's they said, okay, you're going to do the desktop thing, etc. But we want to see, you know, the basic mockup and things like that on your on an iPhone proof of concept first, where you agreed on the things you were going to deliver. You have some stuff you're going through it there and saying, yeah, this is sort of how it works on your iPhone, and yeah, it looks good. It's nice. You have all the things we agreed on, and then of course you say, okay, so we did do this is now on an iPhone, and we tried it also, you know, on the smallest iPhone SEs. It's fine, mini, yeah, cool. And by the way, I can do this on a Galaxy S20 as well. Yeah, you can see things change around a little bit when I did it. The toolbar got different. My settings stuff changed. If you look at it, you have different style bottom. If you go back to my iPhone, we got the different switches, and the bottom navigation bar is different, and we can go back to this one again and say, yeah, we can do OnePlus, we can do this crazy tall Sony Xperia. It looks pretty slick there as well. Everything works. You can go to a Note. It's all fine. So, and then you say, oh, by the way, we talked about doing this for your tablet use cases as well. And yeah, sure, we can do that. See, we can go to an iPad and take a look at it. Now you got your navigation bar here on the side instead, and you can take it away if you want to have a bottom bar. But go back here and you got this, and go to an Air or go to the big one, and you got a big menu where you have room for that. And everybody that's looking at this now is saying there's something fishy going on here, because you can't simulate iOS, iPads and iPhones on a Windows computer. I'm using a Windows computer here. I don't have an iOS simulator. So what is going on here? And the secret here is what we are looking at is an actual Windows desktop application showing its own user interfaces in different devices using a simple device plugin. So now I'm going to say, okay, this was actually just a part of the application where it shows itself. I am actually a desktop application, and you can switch to the desktop mode, and it's the same application with the same data and everything going on in it. Let's take that away again, because it was quite quick when it happens there, because I just clicking to native view and my device preview, and in device preview I can jump around to different devices. It's and as you can also see, it is quite a sort of quick and pleasant user experience scrolling around in this user interface. It's not sluggish or slow. And this is really the benefit of Flutter for desktop. It enables you to build crazy things like this, things that were even hard to imagine before. Oh, let me go back to the presentation. It's the black screen there. It's going to be there we go, and go to the next screen. So that is really a mind-blowing thing. You can show them all the user interfaces, even if you're delivering a mobile app. You can show them on the desktop and you're discussing it, or in a presentation like this, and go through the app, what it does, and look at it in different user interfaces, and use that as a selling point and say, oh, wait, that thing works because it's why it actually worked so well is because the application itself is built very responsive. So you can see when I resize and do everything in my desktop app, it does the same tricks. It was just restricted to its different views before and showing different layouts of itself. Okay, back to other cool things you can do with desktop to get them to say, wow, is storyboards. You know what storyboards are. I don't know if anybody does storyboards anymore, but if you have your designers, they're gonna come with the Figma drawings or whatever and say, yeah, here are my light theme layouts for the phone and the dark ones, and they look like this, and this is what we're gonna build for you, and we're gonna make them in tablet size, and we're gonna compare them and look at them a little bit also in phone, tablet, and big layout, and see how this is designed. Okay, this is all fine and cool, but what if you do total inception on this as well? What you're looking at here is an application, a desktop application showing itself and all its screens as in a phone view, and all the screens are sort of presented in a storyboard fashion, but they are all live, and they actually work even though they are small if you click on them. So that's pretty cool. You're going to see me changing into dark mode there, and the whole presentation, the surrounding goes dark mode, because the small screens, phone screens, change the theme mode of the application, which is the big application itself. So you can do, this is kind of like inception, and you can do really cool stuff with this, but the one thing you can't do, you can't put the screen, this screen that shows all the other screens in this screen, because then you get an infinite iteration of it and you run out of memory pretty fast. But it's a really cool thing to do. So that was a little bit about helping you sell and move these things into the sort of get a little bit buy-in, that you can really deliver stuff on a next level with Flutter. At least I think it's really fabulous. Then it comes to making things look nice and pretty. Flutter theming. Oh, it's one of my favorite and one of my least favorite topics. And while I enjoy it very much, it's a big mess at the moment in Flutter. because you have these different methods of making themes. You have your theme data, which doesn't make very nice themes because it leaves out a lot of color properties by just doing the default ones, and the theme data with the brightness dark or theme data dark, which is basically just another implementation of the first one that you see there, doesn't do the right dark mode themes that are as specified by the material guide. To get the surface colors that are correct from a material guide point of view, you have to create a theme data from a color scheme. You can do it with theme data too, if you know what you're doing. If you know what color properties you need to set and how to adjust everything, it's totally doable. But to make a theme that is more in line with the material guideline, material guide 2 now still in use in Flutter, it's best to use the theme data from color scheme and the different color schemes and adjust the primary variant and secondary, and you only need to set those 4 columns. But it still results in a theme data that is partially incomplete in that some color properties in the theme data won't get the correct colors from the color scheme. So you would have to go in and adjust those with a copy vid or do everything directly in theme data. Another strange thing with these theme data factories, they are all factories, by the way. It's not a raw constructor. That one is not available. They're all factory constructors. So, but anyway, a strange thing is that you don't get the correct typography from a material guide point of view when you create with any of these. You have to add that as an extra thing there. If you want the 2018 typography that the material guide specifies, you have to adjust it yourself to use that one. And this is all very confusing to newcomers when you're talking about theme data. Theme data is a really big sort of data property class that adjusts how everything looks and behaves in Flutter. You can totally change the behavior of Flutter app and look of it by adjusting it. And it has some 2,000 lines of code, and I'm not counting the 30 plus sub-themes that exist in it. And it also has 25 color properties on top of the colors in color schemes in theme data itself. And color scheme, when you do a theme data from a color scheme, it helps you set a lot of them, but not all. It's conveniently or inconveniently leaving out a few. So luckily there is, Google is and Flutter team is well aware of this. It's not a big question about that. There is a document written in 2020 January about what needs to be done to fix it all. And recently they started migrating. They created this umbrella migration issue that has a checklist of all the things that are going to go away. So ultimately, all the color properties in theme data are going away, and you are just going to have the colors in the color scheme. And then you set the color scheme and pass that into theme data, and you have your colors, and you're done. That would be a beautiful and simple thing to get the colors done. Then you have the sub-themes for defining different behavior for each different component and widget when you want it to deviate. So, but this might take a while, and
I think some colors already are gone.
Yeah, some are gone. A few, like a handful, maybe, are gone. That is correct. So while doing all this theming and building desktop app, I started noticing I need a lot of involved teams when I do this. So yeah, I create some packages as well, not too many of them, but one of them is Flex Color Scheme. It helps you make a color consistent theme for your application. It comes bundled with a bunch of themes. And it also now with the latest release does a lot of fancy sub-theming that might be of interest of you. It also has some special features that I like to call sort of branding, surface color branding. You take the primary color and you mix it in with alpha blends into different surfaces a little to create a nuanced colored look of things that makes things pop and look pretty. And this is what I'm going to try to show you a little bit of. This ultimately, this Flex Color Scheme that I'm talking about is not doing any tricks. It just gives you a theme data object at the end of the day. You can do all the things it does yourself if you know what you're doing. But even I don't attempt to do them anymore without using my own package because I'm too lazy. So to do that, we're gonna look a little bit about it again. See if I can get a demo here going. I'm gonna pick up some things here. Okay, we got that one. I'm gonna pick one more up. Okay, let's keep that for later. Okay, good. I have it there. So let's say you have your Flutter app. This is now a sort of just a, let's see that it still works. It's still alive. Yep, good. It has a standard, this is the standard material theme, no tricks and stuff done to it. It's the guide theme, the guide colors, etc. Not going to do any tricks to it. Now we're going to see if we can make this a little bit more interesting and what we can do to it. And as a part of the Flex color scheme, I made kind of a configurator. I'm going to start by saying maybe the customer said, okay, they like this sort of last blue theme, but we're going to fix one of the colors. And now I'm going to activate the actual Flex color scheme theming features. If this is still alive, yeah, there we go. It's still starting to come alive again. React a little bit. Now we got a little bit different themes, but not so much. And okay, we have the sub theming on already. I'm going to take it away just temporarily. You can see we got very boring buttons. Now when I put the sub themes on, where did it jump? It jumped there because it jumps. We get different look on the buttons, and I'm going to use also something called the new material text theme. You will see that this text theme is no longer the standard. This is the new material 3 text theme actually. And I'm going to, you know that if you have an Android 12 phone, you have seen all these material rounded corners and stuff. And by a single click of a button, you can get that here as well. And if you don't want to use the material rounded, you can use custom adjusted, and it will adjust them on all the widgets. This is, as I interactively change this, I'm not changing any component. I'm just dynamically adjusting all like some 20 different sub themes, actually adjusting it by one slider here. So, but we're going to go with that. And of course, your customer had some custom colors they're gonna want to use. So we're gonna copy. They say they have this sapphire blue. They have to have that one. You know, it's important to have the right color. So I'm gonna copy that to a custom scheme, and then you could basically theme and change this application to your heart's content here. But we're gonna do I'm gonna paste in the sapphire blue, and we're gonna pick that one. And let's do a quick one for the dark theme as well. We had they have another color for that. So I'm going to copy that and paste that into there and use that as the dark theme. Okay, now we got that. We still don't have any surface branding here, so I'm going to surface blends there. So the thing you can do with that is just use a different little bit surface blend, but we're going to like this mode is more like desktop and pattern one. Okay, there we go. This is okay. This is okay. Now it looks fun. So now I'm going to grab the code for this. Now this is a web app using the Flex theme, and it's going to generate the Flex color scheme theme setup for this. So I'm going to copy that, and we're going to go over here to this demo application that just has a standard theme. What you'll notice though is that it copies in, it uses theme data from and the color scheme dark, but it does modify the typography to use the correct one that you don't get by default. So I'm just going to comment those, and we're going to copy in the new theme. And it's going to go all skewy and red because we haven't imported. And it had a theme mode system as a default, so you would control it by system, but we have a toggle here in this app, so we are going to do that. And we're going to see if we're going to up. Can wait it to wake up and import that package. All right. Let's see if this has been standing in standby here for this whole seminar. Okay, but it did. It worked. It showed up. You got the theme here in this application now as well. And this is, by the way, now not a fake sort of desktop. This is actually moving it into a sort of an emulator. And you got your theme here with the new Material 3 style theme, even with that odd floating action button that you got in Material 3. And the chips are not round anymore, but the buttons are. And we do have this blue color here with a background on it as well. We can put a sidebar there as well on this one. It doesn't do anything, but it gives me easy access to toggle the theme mode in this demo as well. So there you have it a little bit about that. And if we go back to this application here, the web app that showed this, you can see it's responsive. It will move that because my screen is so small. It made that theme. But anyway, you can see that it's the same theme that I defined here in this web application and just copy pasted into this application as a theme to reuse and things like that. But this web app that we are looking at that does the configuration is, by the way, open source, and it's using actually the skeleton architecture that Alessio discussed before. So, and it doesn't have any state management, but it uses the material, the Flutter skeleton architecture, and it has a service, it has an abstract service, it has different implementations for storing it as well. So you can take a look at how that is built if it interests you as well. So let's jump back into the presentation. Do I have it? Yeah, it's going to be that one, the black screen. So jumping a little bit back to, I'm almost done, by the way, and a pretty good schedule of that. So material view, it's we have seen it. There is a document on the web already. Go read it, have a look at it. That's of course going to change how we theme applications. What is going to happen in Flutter? Well, we are moving from material 2 theme color scheme to material 3 color scheme, and it has a lot more colors. And boy, are people going to be confused. I'm pretty sure. And to scare you even more, there is a material 2 color scheme in stable channel 2.5, and in master channel you have all the new colors already. They don't do anything on Flutter widgets yet. It stays so explicitly there in the header code. There's no widget implementing this color scheme and using it yet, but it's coming. So, and as a part of that, they also really now started cleaning up that old theme data. And I do hope that they clean it up, because it's very difficult to use it today if you're not really into it and haven't read, studied the theme data, what it does and what each color does. So I got a little bit fed up with it. So I made this cool toy tool that you can make nice looking themes easily, just copy paste and be done with it. And that's it. So that's about it, what I had thought of for today. Somebody is interested in this topic, I could go deeper into theming and image-based theming. Actually, if we have a second, I could probably show you that, because that is something cool that you can do with themes. And you all know that Flutter Android 12, there we have it. Android 12 is doing some cool things where it takes colors from your wallpaper and it creates a theme. You can do that in Flutter today. Nobody says you can't. So if I click on this image, it's going to take some colors from this image. I click on it again, it grabs some new colors, and you get the theme changing based on these images here that I click on. And you can even, take this familiar face, somebody who did a presentation today, and see if he's good for any teams also. I don't know, but he's a good team player. So all these things are totally doable without going too deep into it. Okay, there we have my presentation back. So, and another topic that is close to my heart is, of course, responsive applications from phone to desktop. You saw some demonstrations of that and the desktop storyboards. So this is topics if somebody wants me back to talk about them, maybe I'll pop by. Any questions? Do we have something?
Yeah. How long have you been working on Flutter and theming?
No, it's just something I did a little bit as a side work, and it's nice to make these nice looking themes. And I found myself repeating myself when I was making these themes, and then I started adding some more color schemes, and I thought, I'll make a package. It started, but I think the package has existed for 1.5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
It's now on this latest reverse.
So before Material U, there was Material Mike.
Yeah.
And in the example you showed before, you're not using any provider river pod, you use directly the animated.
Yeah. The web example where I did that shows all the theming settings and all that. It persists the settings. It has actually 2 persisting models. It has shared preferences. It has a Hive implementation, and it's using just animated builder and a controller to do it. So it's exactly your architecture, but it's just one simple case.
Nice.
I have a question also. Like, this looks like a killer app when I'm working on a theming or something. I don't know, how many people do you think know about this?
I don't know. I tweet about it a lot, but,
but
really,
this looks really, really awesome if I work on theming, actually.
Yeah, and the fun thing is, it's so easy. You can just try them, and you can also, if you look at the tutorial and the examples, they show you how you can set up your own sort of selection of, say, 5 or 10 themes that you offer to the client. They can all be custom. You can reuse the ones that are available in the package. And you can add as first choices the customer's own colors. And you can say, if you want to try some other colors, just select here in the theme list. and click and go.
Okay. What is your opinion on Material U?
Oh, I think it's fabulous. And I can't wait to add it to Flex Color Scheme because I'm pretty sure people are going to be confused by it. So I will try to make it simpler.
I think Alessio didn't like Android 12, did you? According to your tweets.
I do like it, but there are parts of it that they don't work with my eyes.
I don't like the non-circular tab.
Okay.
That one looks out of place a little bit. But that's why in Flex Color Scheme, when you select Material 3 Styles Rounding, you can exclude the fab and keep it circular.
Okay, and do you like the sizes? Because currently there's this fab, which is huge.
Yeah, it's a little bit big. I think so too. But luckily, most of the parts that I've seen in the components that coming, also the bottom navigation bar. Oh, I forgot to show you. I got a Material U bottom navigation bar in that desktop app as well.
My question. So you said how building desktop apps of Flutter is obviously powerful and useful and so
Yeah.
on. But the apps that you show, they're obviously very material design driven. But we also have, Mac OS UI elements, Windows. I think there's a fantastic package called Fluent
They are
UI.
beautiful.
How do you marry the Material U theming, the Flutter inbuilt theming with those components, and how do you make it look native to those platforms?
Yeah, that's a very excellent question because I've been thinking about it too. And one thing that I sort of would like to do if I have the time is make a wrapper around them, sort of an adaptive UI wrapper, because we have a few Cupertino components, and now we have the Fluent UI for Windows, and there is this Mac UI,
Mac OS UI, yeah.
Mac OS UI. And it would be so nice to have an adaptive wrapper around them that could automatically use the right components on the right platform by just using another abstraction layer on top of them, and then use this. That would be really nice. But right now, if I would use them, and if I really want to feel people at home on a Windows, I would definitely use this Flutter Fluent UI. There are also some other nice packages that allows you to integrate a little bit more with Windows Desktop, do drag and drop and these kind of things. So those definitely belong in an app for that as well. The stuff I showed you here was very material oriented. Of course, that can feel at home if it's still sort of very mobile driven, and you need to complete your tasks in the back office, and it looks the same. It can be okay.
The wrapper that you mentioned sounds like something that should belong in the main Flutter SDK.
It should, and there has been discussions also in the Flutter SDK, should the UI components belong there or not? There are pros and cons with the both, sort of that they would be packages that you import the UI libraries. You import your Material, Cupertino, and Fluent, and Mac UIs.
Thanks.
Also, I want to add one comment on your question that I truly believe with Flutter, the best way to go is with heavily branded applications. So something that doesn't respect Material and doesn't respect iOS, and at the same time, it's respectful of the systems, both of them.
Yeah, this is what we are trying to do at Wolt, actually.
Yeah, I saw that. It looks beautiful.
I'll just do that. But then, you still have to use the little, text fields and little buttons. So you kind of have to stick to a design system regardless.
Yeah, of course, you have to be respectful of the system.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree that kind of coming back to the conversation about why to use Flutter over React Native, for example, is that you can control, as the Flutter team always says, that you have to control every pixel on the screen, and Flutter does allow you to do that. And in many applications, especially in big companies like Wolt, you have to convey that branding for the UI, and Flutter is the perfect tool to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
We have Majid on stage.
Okay.
I don't know where to look anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it has been 3 hours
It's a
streaming.
marathon.
3 hours
But
streaming.
we are on time. Before this meetup, we were wondering if we will have enough time.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it, but we didn't have breaks.
Yeah.
In the original schedule, that was breaks. Okay, so
Do you have any questions still there in the stream? Oh, thanks for liking the presentation.
I love all the work you did for letting people better understand Simplify theming in Flutter. Great job.
Thank you.
and we have Majid.
Mahid, you're there.
Right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for this amazing event. It was perfect. My regards to all of the speakers now sitting there. Fantastic presentation, all of you. Really enjoyed. And now we are coming to the end. Here is the raffle part. Okay. So in the beginning, I mentioned that we're going to raffle stashes as well as one free ticket for senior track, Flutter Global Summit, as well as one ticket for Flutter White. So, and now I've checked actually our form. I'm not able to show, that's privacy reasons, right? But you have to believe me, we have 42.
Majid, I think there's something wrong with your sound because we can't hear you well.
Okay, let me just switch. How about now?
Now it's perfect.
Better.
Okay, so now, well, you need to believe me that we have 42 submissions. And what I did, I just created this, let's say, picker wheel. And I'm going to actually hit the spin button, and then we'll see which number comes for. Okay, let's ask a question. Do we need to raffle ticket first or dashes? I think dashes at the end because that's more exciting,
Yes.
right? Let's go for Flutter Summit ticket first. 1, 2, 3. And drum roll! Yay! Number 30. And number 30 is... All right. Last name is Kaya, so the first name is a bit difficult for me to pronounce. I hope that. But Kaya from Finland. That's good. So that's you. Congratulations. So you won a free ticket to Global Summit. I'm going to write
Well,
it down.
I can see the name on the screen. Can you see the name on the screen?
No, I will not show that actually, as I said. But believe me, I'm reading from the list, number 30 right now.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go. I'm going to remove this choice. Now we're going to have for...
Should we write the name on the chat?
Yes, please. I can do that right now. Let me do that.
Perfect.
So the name is this name. Maybe you can also pronounce it.
Let me check.
Gulbike.
Gulbike Kai. Actually, she's my friend.
Huh.
Really?
Yes, very good.
By accident?
No.
Maybe. No, I don't know. All right, let's go for the free tickets for Flutter Vikings.
Okay, Flutter Vikings.
Drum roll. Why, yay. And the number 28. And 28, wow, that's from Macedonia. So I hope that she or he is still on this call. I hope that you can join in person. But anyway, congratulations. So now we're going for 2 dashes. I'm going to remove these choices as well. 2 dashes. Let's see. But for dashes, we have a criteria. I'm very sorry for those who are not part of like Nordic area. We have a lot of actually people in like buying this for the people like from Finland, Norway, and Sweden. But if you are from other countries and if you are a winner, I'm sorry to say that we are not able to send it over. But let's see.
But before that, maybe you can mention about why Dash is so precious, because I don't know, it's hard to get it, right?
It's hard to get it. Yes. Yes. Or someone says that I can provide Finnish address. So people are like really looking for these dashes. Okay, if you can't do that, I see your name. If you can't do that, then for sure.
But how about
let's
Denmark? Denmark.
Yeah, Denmark as well. Denmark as well. So let's go for drum roll. 1, 2, 3, drum roll. Yay! Number lucky winner. Who gets the dash? 16. Oh my God! Let's. Oh wow! I'm sorry for number 16. He's from Uzbekistan, so it's very hard for us actually to send it. So for all of the winners, we will actually email you because you already filled this form, and we will let you know how you can get your prize. All right. So I'm sorry for this person from Uzbekistan. I'm going to remove this person and try again. Let's do it again. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Let's see who is the lucky winner. Number 29. What? 28, 29, and 30. 29 is Nigeria. Oh, I'm sorry for this person as well. He or she is from Nigeria. So wait a second. One of our winners.
There is a comment
Now-
that he is in Finland now.
Maybe joking? Or?
Maybe joking. Yeah.
Are you in Finland? Really?
If you're in Helsinki, come at the door.
Mocking GPS?
Okay, I'm sorry for this person. Let's do it again. I'm gonna remove that. Spin. 1, 2, 3. Let's see who is the lucky winner. 21. And 21 is from Finland. And
Oh,
Andreas. Yes, let me actually put this name here. Maybe you can help me to pronounce the last name because it's a bit difficult for me. But Andreas.
Koutsokos.
Okay.
Andreas Koutsokos.
Congratulations, Andreas.
Yes, congratulations, Andreas. Then
We will
we will
contact
contact you via email. So you will know soon how we will send it to you. One more winner.
A Wolt delivery.
Yeah.
41. And he's from Finland as well.
Nice.
So that's good. So Alexander, so congratulations. You have also won one precious stashes. All right.
Amazing. So we
That
have two
was very
dashes
good.
here. They have new address.
We have your email address. So I've
And-
written down here. So we will contact you and let you
You
know
will
how.
bring this to your home.
Yes.
Okay.
Let me remove this right now as perfect. All right. Very good. So then I think with that said, we are coming to the end, right? From the HQ over there, everyone is standing. Maybe if we can get everyone to screen so everyone, we can maybe take a picture.
We have pictures, but yeah, one more picture. Unfortunately, Tom has to leave.
Oh, that's unfortunate. So everyone cheese or maybe whiskey.
Oh yeah, why not getting your dash?
Yeah, and maybe this disinfectant doesn't look so good either.
All right.
Muy cool.
Very nice.
Thank
I
you very
took my
much.
screenshot. Thank you
We
very
have a
much.
professional
And
photographer here.
perfect. Everyone in the call, thank you for watching us for 3 hours. You're all amazing. We hope to see you next time for another
One
meetup.
question. Are you planning to share the video after this? Or is
The
it already
video
in the channel?
right after I end this session will be available on YouTube. You can watch it right away.
Great.
Lovely. All the 3 hours.
All the 3 hours. Don't enjoy the talks. And have a good day, night,
Thank you very much.
evening. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Bye bye.